In what has been one awful week for WWE Creative, which is not really saying all that much because every single week is an awful creative week in WWE, I was struggling to find a topic for everybody to really discuss today on the podcast outside of what I've already talked about on Monday and again on Friday. But then we watch SmackDown, and lo and behold, we have all this new information about how everybody backstage at SmackDown was furious at upper management. Everybody from backstage producers to the people that work the cameras and run the show to all of the creative team. Everybody is furious at Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard. Imagine showing up to work all these months during the pandemic, and the company is making more money now than they've ever made in the history of World Wrestling Entertainment. And they promised you bonuses, raises, and promotions, only for the company to turn around and tell you as of this week, nobody's getting any promotions, nobody's getting any bonuses, and nobody's getting anything as far as a raise. Can you imagine that? Risking your life to show up for work in the middle of a pandemic, to do what you are told, to come to work basically out of fear of losing your job, or if you're one of the members of the roster, male or female, who are afraid to go to management to tell them that you don't want to show up to work because you don't want to risk your health, and then you show up to work basically out of fear. How would you feel if they came to you and told you they weren't going to give you a raise or a bonus of any sort? That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened in WWE this week. I have all the backstage news on how it was handled. It was called a shit show. And what Bruce Prichard did in the middle of all of this. And I'm going to double down on why I think he is number one, public enemy number one in WWE. We're going to go over all that today on Off the Script. I also got news on what WWE is talking about in regards to WrestleMania. Is WWE going to follow in the footsteps of the Super Bowl with cardboard cutouts? What was their original thought when they seen it? And have they changed their opinion after watching the Super Bowl last Sunday? I also got news on John Cena as he doubles down his status for WrestleMania 37, and all of your Monday Night Raw, AEW, NXT, and Friday Night SmackDown news for the week right here on episode 364 of Off the Script.
5, delete! This is mine.
Alive with it. People still What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining me right here on Off the Script. It is episode 364 of the podcast for Saturday, February 13th, 2021. I am the master of ceremonies, as always, JD from New York. Unbelievable week in WWE, man, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean that in one of the most laziest and uncreative ways possible. I understand WrestleMania season is exciting to most people just based on the fact that it's WrestleMania and it's the biggest wrestling show of the entire year. But I gotta be honest with you, man, I am sick and tired of everybody being content with what they are getting on television. And the fact that nobody questions anything, and the fact that everybody is just okay with the way WWE operates and handles creative decisions. It's not the way I go about it. It's not the way I go about it. I honestly think this year might be the most important year in all of WWE, ever. This is the biggest WrestleMania possibly of all time. And I don't mean that because we're celebrating some big anniversary of the event or some milestone achievement in the company. It is the most important WrestleMania, the biggest WrestleMania of all time, because it is going to be a complete reset of WWE moving forward in what everybody has coined the pandemic era. And the way WWE is operating, it's as if they're taking everything for granted. It's WWE being just as lazy, if not lazier, than they've ever been, ever. And I don't understand why you would handle such an important event like WrestleMania 37 this year, the first event since last March that you're actually having live fans attend. And you're going about it as if, oh, we don't have to do anything super special for this show. We don't really have to do anything creatively that's going to get people interested and excited. They're just going to be excited to attend the events because they haven't had an event to attend since last March. Bullshit. That doesn't give you the right to skimp on doing what you need to do. What if I ordered something and I go to a fancy fucking restaurant that's 5-star restaurant and I order something really nice and I order a beautiful steak, $80 steak, and you got all the trimmings. You got the mashed potatoes and you got the grilled asparagus and you got the fancy rolls and all this shit. What if you bring out the goddamn steak and you don't leave any room for the mashed potatoes or the asparagus? You just leave it in the back. You forget about it. Oh, yeah, well, the steak is more than enough for you guys. The steak is more than enough. What do you need the mashed potatoes for? What do you need the asparagus for? What do you need the buttered rolls for? The glass of wine? Fuck it. The fuck do you need it for? It's exactly how I think of WWE. WWE thinks they're this 5-star restaurant, and you can go in there and watch and do whatever you got to do, and they can give you whatever. You're expecting all this shit because it's WrestleMania, and then WWE, they half-ass the fucking order. Shitty service. The fucking waitress is a complete bitch. She don't do her job. She's trying to do 6 things at one time. Nasty. That's how I look at WWE. That's how I look at Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard. No question. It's unbelievable, man. And the reason why I'm so upset this week is because look at how they've handled the Elimination Chamber. Look at how they have handled the Elimination Chamber. Edge has yet to choose his opponent for WrestleMania. You would think that coming out of the Royal Rumble, this guy would be excited about getting a WWE title match. Oh, I'm going to challenge this guy. The WWE thinks that Edge is a draw. The ratings seem to prove otherwise. The ratings show that nobody gives a shit about Edge being back on television. And the fact that Edge won the Royal Rumble at 47 years old. Nobody gives a shit that he's on Raw or SmackDown or NXT teasing that he's going to challenge Finn Balor. Who gives a shit? It's not a ratings draw, clearly. So why doesn't WWE go and just do what they need to do and simplify things for the road to WrestleMania? Sometimes the simplest route, the simplest road is the best road. But these people think that convoluting the road and riding down a bumpy highway and you got potholes everywhere, flat tire here. Ridiculous. That's what they think the road to WrestleMania should be, bumpy and unpredictable. Oh, you'll make it. Don't worry about it. There's a light at the end of the fucking tunnel. It's not the way I see it. I mentioned this on Friday. WWE should have had Edge go out there and challenge Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. Why? Because he won the Royal Rumble coming off of the Raw brand. So he should challenge the Raw champion. WWE and their indecisiveness here with Edge. Oh, he shows up on Monday. Oh, he shows up on Wednesday. Oh, he shows up on Friday. The fans eat it up. Oh, look, he's a fighting challenger. He's full-time. Look, you got to give him credit. I'm not going to give nobody credit. The fuck am I giving him credit for? He was out for 9 months. WWE needs a return on their investment. You think they're going to pay this guy for sitting home for 9 months? This guy's contracted to 25 dates. 30 tops. Wrestling at all the major shows. WWE is now getting their money's worth. He's going to be on TV all fucking season to make up for all the dates that he missed last year. What do you have? 4 dates last year? 5? If that? This guy's going to be on every fucking show to get their monies back. Absolutely no question. But people don't realize that because nobody uses their fucking brain. They only see what they want to see and they only listen to what they want to listen to. They love to create their own narrative. But when I say something, oh, JD's the asshole. Oh, JD's wrong. Give me a break. Oh, JD's negative. Go fuck yourself, I'm negative. The truth is not always negative, folks. The truth is refreshing. The truth is liberating. Sound like Sami Zayn. It's awesome. WWE, what they did with this uncertainty, the Elimination Chamber has now suffered. Drew McIntyre's in the Elimination Chamber defending against 5 other guys. Roman Reigns is not in the Elimination Chamber for SmackDown. They put 6 guys in the Elimination Chamber, and the winner of that Elimination Chamber, instead of challenging Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, making the Chamber feel important. What's the Chamber, and how is it important to what's going on during the road to WrestleMania? WWE always sold us on the fact that the Elimination Chamber is a vital part of the road to WrestleMania. How is this factoring into WrestleMania? So the winner of the SmackDown Chamber gets Roman Reigns immediately after that Chamber match is over. So he would have wrestled whomever it may be that wins it, wrestles 30 minutes, 35 minutes, then gets another match immediately after that with Roman Reigns. How is that important to what happens at WrestleMania? Instead of having that winner challenge Reigns at WrestleMania, giving importance to Reigns, the Universal title, the road to WrestleMania, and the Elimination Chamber, WWE in 1 week has fucked up the Elimination Chamber to a point where it's absolutely unimportant. It's irrelevant in the grand scheme of the road to WrestleMania. Then we got Fastlane. So who exactly is challenging Drew McIntyre for the WWE title? Who exactly is getting Reigns at WrestleMania? Is that Edge? Why are you prolonging something that we already know is going to happen? Just come out and say it. Then you could have left the chamber open for Drew McIntyre's opponent at Mania if that was the way you want to go about it. And Drew McIntyre could have still defended the title on a fucking D-level pay-per-view against somebody like Sheamus and give him a spotlight. Because you've already told that story. This is the WWE Creative Week, folks. This is why I was so angry about what had happened on WWE television this week. But we have a lot to go over, man. We got WrestleMania news. We got a lot of news in regards to why everybody is frustrated and pissed off, downright angry, backstage at SmackDown this week. And you're not going to believe the things that have been reported about one person in particular. You know who I'm talking about. Public enemy number 1 over here. Bruce, I wear polyester cheap suits and I'm a fat slob who can't write a wrestling show on a weekly basis. Prichard. Everybody's like, oh, how do you know what happens backstage? You don't work there. What? I don't work there. Listen, if there's one person that knows an asshole, it's me. And let me tell you something, you fucking online geek trolls. I'm not the asshole in this situation. So before you clip that, go fuck yourself. I know an asshole when I see one. And Bruce Prichard is the epitome of an asshole. So we're going to talk about that. I got John Cena news. I got Lars Sullivan news. Wait till you see the gimmick. The proposed gimmick for Lars Sullivan while he was still employed on SmackDown. I gotta be honest with you, man. It looks intriguing. To a point, it might have been something that he could have worked very well. But now he's gone. I got news on that. I got your Monday Night Raw, AEW Dynamite, NXT, and SmackDown news all rolled into one. John Cena news. I got Bad Bunny news if you guys give a shit about that. I got a ton of stuff to go over today, so strap yourselves in. It's going to be a good one right here on Off the Script. Follow me on social media at JD from NY206. That's Twitter and Instagram. Hit that subscribe button down below if you have not done so. please hit that subscribe button down below. We are here every single week doing the pro wrestling thing on YouTube and the IWC. Make sure you guys turn on that bell for all notifications. There is only 25% of you that have turned on the bell and have opted for all notifications. There's something wrong with that. That means that 75% of you either don't have all notifications on or you haven't turned the bell on at all. What are you waiting for? Turn the fucking bell on. It's the best way to get the content delivered to your sub boxes. If you don't, then you're probably wondering, oh, JD's on vacation somewhere. No, I'm not, man. I'm here every single week doing it better than anybody. So turn on that bell for all notifications. Make sure you guys go and support the podcast. There are a couple of ways to do that. Number one, patreon.com/JD from NY206. Great way to support the show is through the Patreon page. We got a bunch of great perks over there, man. So go and check that out. Bonfire.com for your t-shirts. Always open. Go get your t-shirts today if you want to support the podcast. Bonfire.com is the home of Off the Script. Make sure you guys go get your masks. Mouthmasker.com/OTS. Still available. They got the black masks in stock, so go get your masks today. And if you guys want to support the podcast, our sponsor on today's show is Dr. Squatch. DrSquatch.com. You're going to use code SCRIPT at checkouts. Man, oh man, I just got my stuff. I'm actually looking at my package right over there to my left, man. I got some toothpaste. I got some cold brew cleanse. My new bar of soap. I got wood bourbon barrel soap. Brand new, just released. I got toothpaste. You name it, man. Shampoo, conditioner. I love it. Dr. Squatch, you guys are going to look your best, feel your best, smell your best. You are already listening to the best. It goes hand in hand, bro. DrSquatch.com. Use code SCRIPT for 20% off every single time. That is DrSquatch.com. And you're going to use code SCRIPT at checkout. And I want to thank them for supporting Off the Script. Let's get into it, man. Right at the top, we're going to start off with some light news, and then we're going to build up to the big story that came out of SmackDown last night. WWE, apparently, will not have as many people watching on Peacock as originally thought. Now, WWE Network is moving to Peacock, which I have to get on because I have not done that yet. I'm just waiting for notification for WWE to say something to the public on when to switch over. And that will be a great deal for the company. Of course, it's a great deal. They're making $1 billion off of all of their content on the network for the next 5 years. That is $1 billion for the next 5 years, man. It's the same deal that they got for SmackDown on Fox. The initial numbers that Peacock touted were a bit misrepresented. According to Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer newsletter, new data has revealed that the Peacock streaming service doesn't have nearly the number of active users as they first said. Now, the number was said to be 33 million. But that number includes a ton of people who don't use the service at all. Now, Peacock comes free with Comcast subscriptions, Xfinity, right? It's the same deal. Comcast is Xfinity and Xfinity is Comcast, right? And I hate Xfinity. I think they're fucking terrible, right? So we got Comcast, Xfinity. Other providers are also offering discounts for the service, and it comes in a package deal. And in total, it's only about 11.3 million. 11.3 million of the people who can watch Peacock actually take advantage of the service. So that's drastically different than the 33 million. According to the memo sent out by NBC Universal and their CEO, Jeff Shell, there is a thought that Peacock might have to merge with Warner Media in order to compete with the other big streaming companies. We will have to see how much business WWE Network brings to the table, but they are going to be more active users. I guess everybody that uses the WWE Network, I guess what that means is everybody that's coming over from the network that's going to subscribe to Peacock, they're going to get a nice influx of active users overall with the switch. Now, it's still 11.3 million. So I don't know how much of a difference this is going to make as far as WWE audience and what people do or watch or how it kind of is represented through WWE, if they gain any traction from this, if they get any more audience boost, if it helps them with their weekly television shows. Who the fuck knows? Nobody knows for sure. But 11.3 million is drastically different than 33 million. But 11.3 million in WWE's eyes is a lot better than what they were doing on their own with the WWE network at 1.5 million. They never broke 2 million. So WWE is looking at a huge increase going to Peacock, even with the 11.3. Even if WWE gets a half of what that 11.3 million is, it's still a win-win situation. Plus, they're getting a $1 billion deal from NBC Universal. NBC Universal looks like the biggest bunch of fucking idiots known to mankind to want to willingly pay WWE $1 billion for their product to put on their service. Meanwhile, their service really isn't all that special to begin with. So, what are you doing? Seems like NBC Universal is just desperately trying to get shit done to make their product appeal even greater to the general audience. I don't know what's on there or what people really need to go out there and do or watch for Peacock to be successful, or what's on Peacock that you're going to go running out there and subscribe to it. But 11.3 million is better than 1.5, 1.6, whatever WWE was doing on their own with the WWE network. So it is what it is, but those numbers were skewed. 33 million doesn't really sound like it's a good deal for NBC Universal. Vince, 74 years old, still coming up with ways for the company to make more money than ever in their history. So you got to give him credit. Vince is a great salesman. He sold the WWE product, the WWE network, their back catalog, most of their back catalog, to NBC Universal for a cool $1 billion. So there you go. But, you know, with that cool $1 billion and then the Fox $1 billion and then the NBC Universal $1 billion for Raw on USA Network all over 5 years, they still can't pay out raises and bonuses and promotions to everybody that breaks their fucking back and risks their health coming to work every single fucking day in the middle of a goddamn pandemic. Go figure. This sounds like a shit deal for Peacock, and Vince is laughing all the way to the bank. New York City. Fuck New York City. But they're allowing indoor arena sports events to resume with new restrictions. Now, the pandemic obviously stopped everything, but New York has now seen a little bit of the light at the end of this long tunnel. The New York Post is reporting that New York City will allow indoor arenas to reopen on February 23rd, but there is a catch. All arenas are only allowed to fill 10% of their capacity. Venues with at least a 10,000 person capacity will be allowed to reopen with a 10% capacity limit starting on February 23rd. The Barclays Center in Brooklyn, which was the home of SummerSlam for 4 consecutive years, will be amongst the first to employ the new model on February 23rd when the Nets square off against the Sacramento Kings. Any fan attending the event must also present a negative COVID-19 test that took place 72 hours from the event. Face masks will also be required, and all arenas will be set up with social distancing in mind. Some pro wrestling staples like Madison Square Garden, the Barclays Center, Nassau Coliseum, and more will reopen under these new guidelines as well. As of this report, no pro wrestling event has been announced, but everyone is under the assumption that it's only a matter of time. Now, you may enjoy going to shows you may desperately miss, going to sporting events. It might be your deal. You might be a regular season ticket holder for the Knicks or the Nets or the Rangers or the Islanders or the Devils, whoever you want to go out there and support in the greater New York City tri-state area, whatever the case may be. But if you live in New York City and you're hearing this news and you're reading this news and you're getting excited, are you really excited to get back out there? Are you really willing to go through the struggle to sit there and wear a face mask for 3 hours during a game, to sit there and having to provide a COVID-19 test. I'm assuming 72 hours from the event, 3 days prior. Who's to say they're not going to have you test after the fact, after you go? It sounds like it's more trouble and it's more stressful than it really needs to be. And I feel like it might not be worth it. The best seat in the house is the seat right in your living room. Why would you want to go to a sporting event with all these handcuffs and restrictions in place? It's ridiculous. It almost sucks the fun out of everything. And why would you want to struggle, not even with that, to buy these exclusive tickets? Who the fuck is going to get the tickets as soon as they go on sale? You thought tickets to these events were tough to come by when there was no pandemic. Sporting events, concerts, this and that. You thought things were sold out quick. You got to jump on these. You got to have the idea in mind that you're going to go, know that you're going to go, knowing that you want to go, and then get in line virtually to go get your ticket. Who's to say these tickets are going to be available? There's going to be absolutely no room for you to dilly-dally and wait and be lazy to go get these tickets. You got to jump on it immediately. They're going to fly 1,000 tickets, whatever the case may be. 1,500 tickets. Sounds ridiculous. I just think that they should wait until we get up to about 50% capacity where it really makes a difference. Honestly, I just feel like it's just a complete waste of time and an unnecessary headache to even want to go and check out any event right now in New York City. Plus, it's the winter time. Nobody wants to venture out into the city into the winter time. It's fucking freezing. I might as well just sit home and enjoy myself there with a cold beverage. Let's talk about this when we get into March, April, May, June, July, in the middle of the spring and summer. That's when it should be a deal. I think people are okay and content with waiting just a little bit longer to get back out there for these events when the restrictions are a little bit less. Is WWE going to have all of their talent fly to New York City, get hotels in New York City, wrestle in the Barclays Center or Madison Square Garden with 1,000 fucking people there? I don't think WWE's even going to go through the struggle. Who's going to want to fly? Who's going to want to go through all these restrictions? Is it worth it for 1,000 fucking people? Who gives a shit? You got your centralized hub right now in the Thunderdome. That's all you need. We can wait a little bit longer. I think it's just a complete waste of time and an unnecessary headache. Speaking of WrestleMania, WWE will have at least 30,000 tickets for WrestleMania. That's a big deal. In a stadium that holds about 65 to 70,000 people, 30,000 for each night on Saturday, April 10th and Sunday, April 11th. That's a big deal. You know they're going to be doing that. I said this weeks ago, the Super Bowl had about 25,000. WWE is going to do more than the Super Bowl because they want to. And that's what they want to have as far as a company-wide feeling. Hey, we did more than the Super Bowl in the middle of the pandemic. Look, the lowest rated Super Bowl in about 50 years or whatever the fucking case may be. It was terrible. It was awful. Even though the game was a blowout, I don't think people are really ingrained in watching sports in the middle of the pandemic, man. This is a long-lasting effect that is going to be a struggle for not only the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, MLB, to get those fans back. Nobody wants to watch a sporting event with fucking half capacity and restrictions in place. Nobody wants to watch sporting events with fucking people wearing face masks all over the place. They want things to be back to the way it should be. That's the way they want it. They don't want to watch this fucking bullshit. Plus, all these sporting leagues got very political during the last 6 months, and that turned many people off. But WWE is definitely going to outdraw the Super Bowl. So WWE's holding WrestleMania, like I said, on 2 nights. And the Super Bowl just took place in Raymond James Stadium. Now, the big game, the Super Bowl, had cardboard cutouts. They mixed 25,000, a little bit more maybe, live people with cardboard cutouts. Now, I seen online that you could buy a cardboard cutout with a virtual image of yourself on the cardboard cutout to be seated inside the stadium for the low price of $100. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, whatever the case may be. The price range is that $100 price range. Now, a lot of people were saying, who the fuck's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay WWE or the NFL $100 for a cardboard cutout of yourself? What is the sense of that? It looks ridiculous. That's a waste of money. But the NFL did something smart. If you actually opted to pay $100 for a virtual image of yourself to be placed in Raymond James Stadium to virtually attend the Super Bowl, you are entered into a drawing. Everybody that got a cardboard cutout of themselves were entered into a drawing to win tickets to next year's Super Bowl when hopefully an entire stadium of live people will be there. So WWE could do that same thing with the cardboard cutouts. If you opt in to buy a virtual image of yourself to be placed inside WrestleMania at Raymond James Stadium on April 10th and April 11th, you are automatically entered into a drawing to win a round-trip ticket for two, hotel, WrestleMania included, Hall of Fame for next year's WrestleMania in Texas. That's what I think WWE should do. Now, regardless of how it looked, I'll get to that, but WrestleVotes is reporting that WWE sent representatives to the Super Bowl so they could check how things looked inside Raymond James Stadium. The company is still trying to figure out how to hold WrestleMania in the safest way possible. That is currently holding up WWE putting tickets on sale. Sources say WWE had a few representatives around the Tampa Bay area last weekend for the Super Bowl. They were gathering further information on how WWE can best pull off WrestleMania safely, hence the delay on ticket sales. The event planning and details this year need to be as precise as ever. So WWE sent representatives there to see what the protocol could be, should be, what it needs to be inside Raymond James Stadium. But they also sent people to actively see how the cardboard cutouts would work. WrestleVotes also reported that WWE was at first they have been against the idea of filling the empty seats with cardboard cutouts for both nights of WrestleMania. But that could change their mind on how good the Super Bowl ended up looking for last Sunday's game. With the Super Bowl at Raymond James Stadium, home of WrestleMania 37, in about 8 weeks, WWE has been against the idea of filling the empty seats with cutouts as the NFL has done. I assume, they say, that decision will be discussed again now that the stadium looked great on television. Now, you have to assume that WWE and the higher-ups have been paying extra attention to every aspect of the Super Bowl. You know they have been doing that. And I saw the Super Bowl. I watched most of the game until I just said, you know what, this shit is fucking boring. But I seen people in the stadium. I seen the cardboard cutouts. I watched many a Brave game this year, and I seen cardboard cutouts in the stadium last year. I hated it. I hate the way that it comes off. It's so unorganic. It looks ridiculous. It looks like you're in the fucking Twilight Zone. It really does. It looks so depressing. You got the virtual piped-in fucking crowd noise. Nothing is genuine. There's no real excitement there. It's so terrible. And this is one of the reasons why nobody's watching the fucking games. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL. Nobody's watching these fucking games because it's legitimately out of a fucking horror movie. That's what it reminds people of. You watch these games, they're supposed to be, you watch WWE on a weekly basis, you watch these shows to escape whatever's going out there, whatever's on the news. Yet you watch this shit, and you're constantly reminded that, hey, fuck you, nothing's the same. Everything is just as bad as it is out there, right here. That's why nobody watches. That's why the Super Bowl was one of the lowest rated Super Bowls in decades. Decades. But WWE, I would be the first to tell you if it was a bad idea. I watched the Super Bowl. I didn't mind it. I don't know if it was the colors of the stadium blending in with what they did. I don't know if it was the way, or if it was the way they shot the game, the camera angles. They really didn't primarily focus on the crowd. From the aerial shots, it looked like the entire stadium was full with people. WWE could do the same thing. I know Vince is a perfectionist. I know Kevin Dunn, behind the fucking producing of these shows, is a perfectionist. I know it. But if this is the only year that you have to do it, and maybe next year we somewhat get back to full capacity with human beings, why not do it? It would be silly for WWE to not do it. A, it would look like the stadium is filled. B, WWE can make how much money off of 60,000, 70,000 cardboard cutouts? I mean, at $100 a pop, you ain't selling any more fucking tickets to the show. There you go. I would rather take that 70,000 times $100 than just be missing out on ticket sales that you can't have. You got to work your way around it. So give people the option to buy a $100 cardboard cutout. Fuck, I'd do it. I would do it. I get a kick out of it. Seeing myself inside the WrestleMania Raymond James Stadium on TV. Hey, look at me. Look how off the script is represented at WrestleMania. And then everybody that buys a cardboard cutout would automatically be entered into a drawing for next year's WrestleMania to attend the show live. To possibly win tickets, hotel, full air, hotel, Hall of Fame, WrestleMania included. That would give a nice added incentive for WWE to the fans, or from WWE to the fans. I think it's just stupid to just leave that money on the table when you know there are people out there that would be willing to do that. So we'll see what happens, man. I'll keep you guys updated on that, but WWE is absolutely, it would be stupid of them not to. They are absolutely going to reconsider what they did not like at first after seeing how good Raymond James Stadium looked at the Super Bowl. John Cena, speaking of WrestleMania, everybody's like, oh, John Cena's lying. John Cena will be at WrestleMania, and a lot of people tend to think that John Cena is bullshitting because he loves to troll on his Instagram account. John Cena says things, and then he kind of throws the scent off from where people are really leading to their investigation. If the scent gets too heavy, he kind of steers the people in the other direction. He's a master troll on Instagram. And John Cena has done this before where people kind of know that he's going to do something and then he says something or he posts a picture of something or whatever the case may be, and he just really doubles down on, hey, I'm not going to do this. Hey, I'm not going to be there. Hey, I'm not wrestling this year. I'm not going to be at WrestleMania. Whatever the case may be. So John Cena doubles down on his status for WrestleMania 37. A lot of people think that John Cena is going to be a part of WrestleMania because he was actually a part of the promotional package where they all got dressed up and played aliases in that funny WrestleMania promo skit that they did with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon and Sasha Banks and John Cena. Hyping that WrestleMania is going to be announced at Raymond James Stadium this year, Dallas next year, and then SoFi Stadium for WrestleMania 39. With the rumored WrestleMania 40 taking place in Los Angeles. But John Cena is doubling down that he's not going to be at WrestleMania. Now, even though John Cena has previously come out and stated that he would not be at WrestleMania this year, there are some who don't think that is true, and some people are within the WWE itself. Most notably, Corey Graves. Corey Graves questioned this status of John Cena on After the Bell, and he questioned whether John Cena would really be missing the show, and he said he doesn't buy into it. While doing an interview with Forbes, the former WWE champion John Cena stated once again that this decision to miss WrestleMania was out of his hands, and any other year would be within his realm. The reason is due to him filming HBO's Peacemaker series, which I'm assuming he has a major role. He's probably, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the star of the show. And if he missed this taping for Peacemaker and made WrestleMania, then it would halt all this production. Because I'm assuming if WWE wants to use John Cena for WrestleMania and he's in the middle of filming right now, that means he needs to make Raw or SmackDown, whichever show he's on. And if he's in Canada filming this series, which I believe he's in Canada, has to fly back into the United States in Florida, which is a COVID hotspot right now, and then he's got to go back to Canada to film. There's going to be weeks where he's got to sit home for 2 weeks to quarantine and then fly back, and he goes back and forth, and there's going to be 2 weeks in between every appearance where he's got to quarantine. It's going to halt this filming of Peacemaker. So I want to say that he's right, and he's telling the truth, and he's correct that he's going to be missing WrestleMania, but Corey Graves doesn't think he's missing WrestleMania. John Cena said this, and I quote, "If this were normal times, I would 100% be there. I'd find a way to contribute somehow. I've sat down in the crowd as a fan. I'll do whatever the event asks me to do because it means that much to me, and WWE means that much to me. But I'm in Vancouver, shooting Peacemaker for HBO Max." He brought the filming of the series and how important it is to him as far as his Hollywood goals, his acting career. Because of the quarantine law, if I were to fly to the States for Sunday on WrestleMania, which is totally possible, the complications arrive when I come back to Canada. Because then I would have to quarantine for 14 days, and that puts production back more than 2 weeks, which costs a boatload of money. And that would be super, super, super selfish of me. Should things be beyond my control, and they start to normalize a bit and travel restrictions lift, then sure, I'm in. But right now, it's logistically impossible. He added that he can't do that to Warner Media or the DC Comics folks or anyone involved in the project because it's not fair to them. So I think we can all right now, at least for now, until we see a surprise on TV and we hear that music go off, I think right now we can put the John Cena showing up at WrestleMania to bed. Whether he wrestles Bray Wyatt in a rematch in an actual match, or he challenges Drew McIntyre for the WWE title, or he wrestles Goldberg, all these rumored matches that's been thrown out by the people in the IWC. I think right now the best thing for all of us to do is kind of die down on the John Cena talk. Do I think he will be at WrestleMania in the next 3 years? Being that they announced John Cena will be a part of the show somehow. He was in the commercial. Yes, I do think he will be a part of WrestleMania, at least one of the shows in the next 3 years. If it's not this year, he'll probably try a little bit better to do next year. Or in Los Angeles, where he's now Mr. Big Hollywood actor, and given 2 years with his current trajectory in Hollywood, maybe a bigger star, which could lend to helping WrestleMania out even more. Being that it's in Los Angeles, he may actually show up on that show. And that's where The Rock wants to wrestle. The Rock says he wants to wrestle Roman Reigns, but it's got to be done right. And The Rock is not going to do anything that isn't near perfection because that's what he strives for. That's the type of guy that he is. So if WWE lands John Cena and The Rock on the same WrestleMania, that's a big fucking deal in Hollywood. Rock is the biggest Hollywood actor in all the land right now. John Cena's on his way up, doing a lot of different things, making a name for himself. So if WWE grabs both of those guys, good for them. I could see it happening in Los Angeles, being the mecca of all these WrestleManias coming out of the pandemic era. But right now, I think we should just kind of die down on the John Cena talk. Even though it would be intriguing to see him chase number 17, I don't know if it's actually going to happen. I don't even know at the end of the day if it's the best decision to do it this year. And against Drew McIntyre. I'm only saying John Cena versus Drew McIntyre because legitimately, there's nobody on Monday Night Raw that even interests me in the slightest for Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. John Cena seems to be the perfect choice for right now, but is he the perfect choice overall? Probably not. Speaking of WrestleMania, WWE is weighing the options of an NXT title match at WrestleMania. Now, this was discussed last week. WrestleVotes tweeted out that there is internal discussion about the NXT title being defended at WrestleMania this year, being that it is a 2-night show. Even if it's a 1-night show, I do think, and the fact that there's no takeover during WrestleMania weekend anymore, being that they are standalone events, I do think that the NXT title on a normal WrestleMania night should be defended at the show. I mean, it's a culmination of all the years' work. You build that match up for WrestleMania on television, you make that announcement, I think it'll go over big. And it gives a spotlight. It gives a taste of all those men and women, or just the men, I would say, not the women's championship be defended at WrestleMania, the men's NXT heavyweight title. Have that be defended. It's a culmination of all the years' work. And that is a little taste of what is to come for them on the main roster. So I think it would be great on a normal WrestleMania year. So Triple H was asked this question during his conference call to hype up NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day. Triple H was asked about the possible NXT matches that could be on the WrestleMania card. He said it's a balancing act And a lot of things need to be taken into consideration. Triple H would love for NXT to have a match on WWE's biggest show of the year, but he didn't confirm that it is happening again this time around. They might run a takeover event around that time as well. He says, and I quote, "My thoughts on it are that it's great. You come into a place with WrestleMania where so many brands with Raw, big roster on Raw, big roster on SmackDown. You got a large roster on NXT. And you get to a certain place where it's how big and how long do you want these shows to be? Everybody is sort of putting their chips on the table, so to speak, for their spot in Mania. As always, that's the biggest spot of the year. Not everybody can be in these spots, and I think everybody understands that, but that's the battle. It's a balance. That is my opinion. I just think that it balances itself out. I love them being a part of it. If you tell me that NXT gets to be a part of the biggest stage in the game and the biggest spectacle, it's phenomenal. It just helps continue to drive it forward. It's just a matter of time and a matter of how much you can fit into WrestleMania that weekend, and you know what the benefit is of having its own platform as an NXT takeover that week. It's a balance, but I love it if we can do it, end quote. Now, I get what he's saying here. It's a little weird that he said this because this really isn't the case, and it hasn't been the case for many years. WWE, even last year, they tried to load up WrestleMania even though it was a two-night show. Some of the shit that we seen last year on WrestleMania's card didn't even need to be there. Everybody is sort of putting their chips on the table, he says, so to speak, for their spot at Mania. As always, it's the biggest show of the year. Not everyone can be in those spots, and I think everybody understands that, but that's the battle. It's a balance act. That is my opinion. But WWE doesn't take it to be that. They always put people on the shows just for the sake of getting them on the show because this is exactly what everybody works for. And the fact that WWE isn't paying bonuses this year, they aren't giving raises, it might be that WWE is going to skimp on putting everybody on the show. Yes, you want to be at WrestleMania just for the sake of being at WrestleMania so that's on your resume. Hey, I'm a WrestleMania main roster act, right? It's a culmination of a year. But there was always an added incentive for people to be on WrestleMania because it meant a bigger payday at the end. You got those bonuses. You got that raise for being on the show. Now you're not getting that. Do you want to be on WrestleMania's card just for the sake of being on WrestleMania's card, even though you might not deserve to be there or it makes no sense for you to be there? I've always considered WrestleMania the biggest show of the year. It really is. It's not the best show of the year, but it is the biggest show of the year. But that doesn't mean you got to get everybody on the show because it's the biggest show of the year. WrestleMania should be held at a higher level, in a higher regard. WWE doesn't need WrestleMania to be 8 hours long. WrestleMania at max should be 5 hours long, and I'm even stretching it to 5 hours and being a little hesitant. 4.5 hours. You don't need everybody on the show. You don't need 16, 17 matches. A good 9 to 10 matches would suffice. You don't need all that. You don't need everybody on the show. You don't need to create a battle royal just to get everybody on the fucking pre-show. The pre-show is not WrestleMania. The pre-show has never been any event. The pre-show for the Royal Rumble is not the Royal Rumble. The pre-show for SummerSlam is not SummerSlam. It's the fucking pre-show. If the pre-show was added to the event on the WWE Network when you go play the SummerSlam actual show, then it would be a part of the show. But when you go to Royal Rumble 2021 and you see the women's tag team title match not on the show, it's on the pre-show. So it's not actually a part of the Royal Rumble show. And that goes for every pre-show match that has been on before an actual event. But WrestleMania should be held in a higher regard. It is a balancing act. Those acts that have worked all year in prominent roles should be given first priority to be on WrestleMania. If you are a guy like Andrade or Angel Garza, and I hate the fact that those guys are absolutely nothing on WWE TV, but if you're going to put Angel Garza in a WrestleMania match just for the sake of getting him on a WrestleMania match, and he's done nothing all year, and I'm using him as an example, doesn't really sit well with me. That spot could have went to somebody else a little bit more higher up on the ladder, who's done more on TV this year. WrestleMania does not need to be 8 hours long. So I don't know where he comes with saying that. Not everybody can get these spots. Yeah, it should be that way, but WWE hasn't done that. The NXT title should be on WrestleMania. If there's no takeover, TakeOver is happening tomorrow. I would assume the next TakeOver we are seeing, February, March, April, we might see something in May. Then we go June, July, and then August. Then we get September, October, November, I would say, right? War Games? And then we get something in December they did? Or they go right to January. I have no fucking, I don't know what their schedule is with TakeOver. It's all over the map. They really haven't, solidified a true TakeOver schedule. I think everybody just expects the TakeOver shows to be accompanied with a major WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series weekend, Money in the Bank weekend. So I don't know what WWE is doing with TakeOver, but if there is nothing for a little bit after this particular TakeOver and there's no TakeOver show immediately following WrestleMania, there should be no reason to not include a Finn Balor versus a Karrion Kross at WrestleMania. Finn Balor would be back on the main roster. It would be a culmination of all his work in NXT with the NXT title. Karrion Kross on the main roster in front of a live audience like that with that entrance and Scarlet and the smoke and the fucking music and everything. He wouldn't be in NXT for that much longer when Vince McMahon sees what Triple H has been cooking up with him. I just think it puts a national spotlight on something that desperately needs as many eyeballs as possible. I think it's a win-win situation for NXT, WWE, Balor, Kross, or whoever is in the NXT title picture at that point. It makes no sense for it not to happen. WWE has no plans for a women's Elimination Chamber match this year. Seen a lot of people on social media last night with the two men's chambers announced. Where are the women's chambers? WWE has let you all down if you're a fan of women's wrestling. WWE has let you down. The women's divisions on both SmackDown and Raw are garbage. Absolutely terrible. You got Lacey Evans and Charlotte, the most important storyline happening on Monday Night Raw. Lacey Evans parading around with Ric Flair. WWE's trying to create this fake sympathy for Charlotte Flair. That's the biggest storyline on Monday Night Raw. And Asuka is in the middle of absolutely nothing with the Raw Women's title. She may actually lose the Women's title at Elimination Chamber to Lacey fucking Evans. Only for Lacey to drop it back to Charlotte and Ric Flair to realize at WrestleMania, hey, I am sorry, my daughter, I love you. You're the greatest of all time. Here's title number 15 in 6 years. What a fucking disgusting title reign. What a disgusting storyline that would be. Are you fucking serious? That's exactly where they're going. Now, they may not go there, but all signs point to exactly that. So what is WWE doing with the chamber? I have no fucking idea. I don't even know what Sasha Banks is doing next Sunday. A match with Carmella? That's always been teased. She's been having these back and forths with Reginald on SmackDown. I have no idea where they're going with that, but Sasha Banks has beaten Carmella in every important situation they've been put in. And they're still teasing her and the back and forths with Reginald. So then you got SmackDown last night where Sasha was hyping up Bianca Belair, and Bianca Belair comes out, and then Nia Jax and her whole come out, and Shayna Baszler comes out. And they got a problem all of a sudden with Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. It made no sense why they were there. WWE tried to sell you on the fact, well, the women's tag team titles can show up on any brand at any given moment. Give me a break. Nobody gives a fuck about the women's tag team titles. This segment made no sense whatsoever. So I don't know if they're doing Sasha and Carmella or they're doing Sasha and Bianca versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler at the pay-per-view. I have no idea. And even that doesn't make sense. Carmella and Sasha doesn't make sense because Carmella doesn't deserve a fucking thing since she has lost to Sasha Banks. And this tag team title possibility with Sasha and Bianca against Nia and Shayna don't make sense because there are two other teams before we get to that potential match that deserve an opportunity before Sasha and Bianca, who apparently are best friends now. Naomi and Lana won the right, so they're first. And then the women's tag team Dusty Classic that's happening in NXT, which more than likely is going to go to Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. They would be ahead of Sasha and Bianca. So what exactly is WWE doing with the women's championships? And I use that plural. SmackDown and women's tag team titles. What are they doing? Nobody wants to see Sasha and Bianca team up to win the titles. We've seen that and done that with Bayley and Sasha Banks. I don't want to see another, hey, two baby faces are teaming up, they win the tag team titles, and then there's inner turmoil, which one of them turns heel, and that leads to them losing the tag team titles and the babyface getting upset at the heel and the heel turning on the babyface, which leads to a heel versus babyface forced match at WrestleMania between Sasha and Bianca. Sasha, we all know, is a better heel. Bianca, I don't give a fuck what role she plays. She's good in either role. She's got that sympathy on the babyface side, and she could be a nasty bitch when she wants to as a heel. I love it. Same thing with Sasha. Sasha is just a better heel than she is a babyface. But I don't think you necessarily need to change one to fit the heel versus babyface narrative. It's fine if they go into WrestleMania as both babyfaces. I think the people just want to see them in the ring wrestling together because of how good they both are. So why force something that isn't necessary? I hope that's not the case. I may be getting angry now for no reason, but it's not necessary to do that. So the reason why there's no Elimination Chamber match at the pay-per-view for the women is because they have no fucking idea what they're doing with Sasha Banks, and Lacey Evans is challenging Asuka for the Raw Women's title. And WWE already has it in mind that Charlotte is going to be in the Raw Women's title match at Mania, whether it's Asuka or Lacey Evans. And Sasha Banks more than likely is getting Bianca Belair. So why do we need women's chambers when everything is already determined without actually being confirmed? You know what I mean? People are getting upset for no reason. And I'd love for you to tell me when there was actually a good women's chamber match that you went back and rewatched because how great it was. They fucked up last year. After last year and after what Shayna Baszler did, there should never be another women's chamber ever again. What good did it do Shayna Baszler? WWE dropped the fucking ball on Shayna more than they've done any woman in the last year. Give me a break. A women's chamber is not needed. But Ringside News, they reported exclusively that there's no talk about a women's chamber. A tenured member of the writing team said to us that this match might be in the minds of Vince, Bruce, Ed Koskey, and Triple H, maybe. Nothing has been sent down to the creative team regarding a women's Elimination Chamber match yet. And now that we are now 1 week away on Raw and on SmackDown, and they've already announced two chambers, why would you either A, book more chambers 1 week away from the show, and why would you book more chambers on a show that already includes two chambers? You want four women's chamber, you want four Elimination Chamber matches, or three Elimination Chamber matches? Don't you say no at that point? Hey man, it devalues the fucking chamber. WWE's already devalued the chamber with what they've done with the men. You want them to further devalue the chamber by adding more chambers when there doesn't need to be more chambers? I don't get people. Stop pushing your fucking narrative. The women don't need to be in everything the men are in. Give me a break. If it makes sense, fine. I'm for it. If it doesn't make sense, goodbye. I'll potentially see you next year. We asked about what they were planning instead of the women's match, and we have confirmed that there will be two men's matches, which was solidified on SmackDown. The setup for the second match was obviously what we got on SmackDown, and that is the winner of the chamber wrestles Reigns immediately after the chamber match is over on the same night. WWE certainly has a lot of options, and Vince changes his mind like he changes fucking underwear, but we will see exactly what WWE has planned. I'm assuming for SmackDown, they have to this week. Maybe Sasha and Bianca show up on Monday Night Raw and get back in the face of Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. I have no idea. They always got that fucking wild card rule, that brand-to-brand invitational. I'm sure they'll weasel themselves into some situation that doesn't make sense on Monday Night Raw, being that come Monday, we'll be 7 days away from the Elimination Chamber show. This is the big one, folks. What I talked about in the beginning of the show, and I went over it just a little bit on SmackDown last night, and we have more big news coming out of WWE in regards to this situation. WWE employees are furious about how news of canceled raises were handled backstage. Now, I read this last night from WrestleVotes, and Sean Ross Sapp actually put something on Fightful Select, so he was the original one that reported that there was internal frustration and upset people backstage because not of creative, but of the fact that WWE was not giving bonuses, raises, and promotions out to commentators and producers and backstage men, the people that run the show, and the roster. Everybody involved was not getting any bonuses. Meanwhile, the WWE made more money than they've ever made before in the history of WWE. Then I read this morning that there was a follow-up on that story from Sean Ross Sapp and from WrestleVotes, and this was by Ringside News. Now, I don't know to the extent in which Sean Ross Sapp reported. I know he said that it was a money issue, but I read it from Ringside News. They may be one and the same. I don't know. I want to give proper credit where credit is due. If it's Ringside News or Sean Ross Sapp, these are the two people that I'm getting this information from, nobody else. Ringside News has learned that WWE's salary freeze isn't the only thing that upset people backstage, but it was also how the situation was handled internally. The news was given to us by various people depending on which team staffers work for. Now listen to this. Listen to this, man. This is why I fucking can't stand the fact that Bruce Prichard is in the position that he is in. He makes himself look like a complete fucking idiot every single time. An idiot that is undeserving of the position and the money he's making. We were told, says Ringside News, that Bruce Prichard gave WWE's new senior vice president of creative writing, Christine Lubrano, the job of breaking this news to the writing team. So Bruce, let me paint the picture for you. Bruce, the executive director of both Raw and SmackDown writing teams, two writing teams he is in charge of. He is the man that they all go to pitch their ideas, and then he pitches whatever ideas he declines, which is 100% of them, to Vince McMahon, and he is the middleman between the writing team and Vince McMahon. But in this ideal WWE world, there is no writing team. They're all working for absolutely no fucking reason because none of their ideas even make it to the fucking table. Bruce Prichard shills himself to Vince McMahon, so Bruce is the voice of Vince McMahon to these people because they can't directly communicate with Vince McMahon. So Bruce Prichard, who is the executive director of both writing teams, it was his job, that's his department, to tell these people, hey, guys, listen, I appreciate all the hard work that you've done all throughout the year, and I'm very proud of everybody, and the fact that you came to work and you gave us your hours in the middle of a pandemic, and you risked your life, and you know, you did what you had to do. You put up with all the bullshit and the stress and all the no's, and all the struggle to write these shows on a weekly basis on Monday and Friday. And I appreciate all of you. I love all of you. You are my team, right? That's what a good boss would say. His team is a representation of him. The way he leads is a representation on them. And then they give that back to him. If he was a good leader, then they would show him respect. If he was a good leader that communicated well, they would be more apt to communicate with him in a proper way. Respect him. Go to him. But he doesn't give these people any of that. He makes them look like a bunch of fucking idiots. He doesn't give a shit about what they say, what they feel. He doesn't care that they show up to work, knowing that their ideas more than likely are not going to be used. Who the fuck knows what these people's ideas could be? Bruce Prichard says no to every fucking one of them and then goes to Vince McMahon and buries his writing team only to get his ideas out, which obviously you see on the show. They are trash. The shows have been the worst they've been in fucking decades. Maybe the worst creative ever. And I've been watching this shit since I was fucking 4 years old. Bruce Prichard, over his team, backed away, he declined, and he brought in Christine Lubrano to tell everybody, hey, we're not getting raises. We're not getting bonuses. We're not getting promotions. Sorry, guys, maybe next year. He brought in Christine Lubrano to tell everybody this bad news instead of doing it himself, And get this, folks, this is the cherry on top of Bruce Prichard's shit Sunday. Christine Lubrano has been there as Senior Vice President of Creative Writing for 1 month. She's been there for 1 month. He had somebody that was there for basically a half a cup of coffee to break this terrible news on Thursday night, right before SmackDown. This was during a writers-wide conference call. The producers, like Jamie Noble and Joseph Park and all these guys backstage, Jeff Jarrett, the producers were told on Friday during a meeting with Mark Carrano. Now, you guys know Mark Carrano. He's usually the geek that's running around on Total Divas, if you guys remember that, if you watch Total Divas. So he's been on camera before. Mark Carrano told the producers. Michael Cole, he was responsible for breaking this news to the announce team, and Ringside News was quoted saying, "It didn't go over well." So, let's see here. Let's continue to paint this picture, folks. Mark Carrano, who is in charge of all the backstage producers backstage, he did his job as overseer of the producers to tell his team, hey guys, we're not getting raises this year. I'm sorry, maybe next year. You know, he was maybe a little heartfelt and compassionate to these people. Michael Cole, he's in charge of all the announce teams. He is directly responsible for what you hear on Monday, on Friday, on Wednesday. He is there guiding them, teaching them, molding them in the WWE way. Michael Cole told all the commentators, hey, we're not getting raises. We're not getting bonuses. We're not getting promotions. So both overseers of their respective departments did their job, but Bruce Prichard didn't do his job. Bruce Prichard declined to go and tell everybody what was going on, and he gave the responsibility to Christine Lubrano, who was there for 1 month. Who's the asshole here, folks? It's not Michael Cole. It's not Mark Carrano. It's Bruce Prichard. One tenured member of the writing team vented to Ringside News saying, and I quote, "Bruce totally shit on the entire creative team. He was part of the discussion and then wouldn't even tell us. And he assigned the task of telling the team to someone 1 month on the job who barely knows anybody." Members of the writing team went to Bruce Prichard about the situation, but he played dumb and treated us like we were all stupid. Producers were said to be at odds with each other over this situation. To be fair, everybody realized that they weren't getting promotions, but they also said about Mark Carrano, hey, at least Carrano faced everybody man to man. We'll give him that much credit. Those bonuses weren't extravagant either. We're talking about cost of living raises, which are standard in most companies. WWE isn't giving out those raises and bonuses now, despite a run of record profits in their earnings report. How soon WWE employees were expecting bonuses that they were not getting? Ringside News uncovered this piece of information as well. They learned that nobody knows how long this salary freeze is supposed to last, but it's not a good look at all, considering the record profits that WWE continues to bring in a quarterly basis. One WWE staffer who received the bad news vented to Ringside News saying, record-smashing income, record-smashing profits, executives got all their big bonuses and multi-million-dollar stock grants, and the little guy gets bled to death, is what one WWE staffer vented to Ringside News. Now, Ringside News also learned that these raises and bonuses were expected very soon, obviously WrestleMania season, that's when it all happens, after the next performance reviews. A lot of incentive is to perform that annual bonus, and it's not there anymore. It's amazing, man. It's amazing what your team would do knowing that they're going to be compensated well for all their hard work. If you tell them that they're going to be compensated and then freeze or take away what is promised to them, How hard are they going to work? How many of these people are actually looking for new jobs, being that WWE is fucking them over? Could be in-ring talent, could be backstage producers, it could be whoever, the lowly fucking janitor or the cameraman. It's ridiculous. So the current situation of traveling during a pandemic was also voiced to us, says Ringside News. A tenured member of the writing team voiced to us how they make the engine run, but now they're cut out of any rewards that they were expecting. And I quote, this is from a tenured source to Ringside News, and I quote, "As we endanger our lives and our families every week to fly to the heart of the pandemic, to come to work and make the engine run, now we're cut out of our annual bonuses when we've been expecting them." End quote. No time frame was given on how long these bonuses and raises will be nixed. The only indication is that it won't happen for the quote-unquote foreseeable future. It is also said that, by comparison, the bonuses that staff were set to receive weren't all that much. We were told that all the writers and producers combined don't get the bonus that Kevin Dunn or a Brad Bloom get, or Brad Blum, whatever the fucking higher up suits and ties shills get. This situation was not received well backstage, as you can imagine. That was the report coming out of SmackDown. It hit morale in a big way, and plenty of people are very upset that they are not getting the money that they counted on receiving this WrestleMania season. It's fucked up. I don't need to sit here and tell you that WWE is doing wrong by everybody involved here. They are treating their employees like complete shit. They are acting as if they have all these people on the roster that make this show run, make this show as good as it looks, are there weekly, live, every single week to give you that WWE presentation, even in the middle of a pandemic, when everything right now is either operating at fucking minimal, and I mean bare minimal capacity, or not at all. And you got these people coming in, flying in and out, wherever they live in Florida. Most of them reside in Orlando or the greater Tampa area, I'm assuming, right? So it's got to be great as far as travel goes, if they all live in the state of Florida anyway and they're traveling back and forth. But WWE really hasn't been as safe as they said about COVID protocol. People are still getting COVID-19, people going out partying, lax restrictions to them. They're out partying and no masks, and they're doing what they want to do as if there was no pandemic at all. People are just sick and tired of everything. But there are some people like Kevin Owens who have lobbied, hey, went to Vince McMahon, hey, we need masks, we need restrictions. And Vince McMahon made promises to everybody on the roster that he was going to take care of them. Made promises to Kevin Owens about instilling these restrictions on the roster and making sure that Roman Reigns is safe with his compromised immune system. And it goes up and down the roster. There are many people that I'm assuming Sami Zayn took 5 months off. Daniel Bryan stayed at home because of his immune system. There were many people who did not show up to work for a long stretch of time in the performance center stage of this pandemic. WWE has been operating without a full roster up until recently. All last year, WWE was operating with minimal roster, 60, 70% maybe, probably less than that. People working 2-3 matches a night. Who's got COVID, who doesn't have COVID? WWE has all these men and women show up to work, and these men and women are risking their health, risking their livelihood, their life in this company in the middle of a pandemic. And then when they come to work and restrictions are laxed or tests aren't being administered or tests are taking too long and they go home to their children, their wives, their families, their parents, their grandparents, how do you think they feel? Knowing that they had to show up to work, because if they don't, they either lose their job, they get suspended, fined, fired if you're Steve Cutler. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they'll fire you. You'll lose your spot on television. WWE has been instilling fear in this roster since the beginning of the pandemic, even though they came out publicly and stated, we will not expect anybody to show up to work, and that if you want to sit home in the middle of this, you will have your spot waiting for you when you come back. We are not taking this lightly at all. We're taking this at maximum seriousness. That was all a lie. That was all a PR statement to make WWE look good in the public limelight. Meanwhile, that's not exactly the way that they thought. Sami Zayn came back and did what? Sami Zayn came back and he immediately dropped the Intercontinental Championship. Cedric Alexander, there was a long stretch of time where he was concerned and he showed up to work. There were a lot of people that showed up to work when they didn't want to show up to work. A lot of these men and women showed up to work when they didn't want to show up to work. But how dare you do that to these people and don't compensate them just for that simple act of showing up to work? Without them, you have no fucking show. So why would you even dare to take away what is their right? They've earned the right to make that money. Those bonuses are theirs, especially now more so this year than any other year. Meanwhile, you're out there recording $1 billion for NBC Universal for Raw, $1 billion for Fox. You're selling the WWE Network to fucking NBC Universal to be on Peacock, another $1 billion. You got the Saudi money, which you're not seeing right now, but that's going to go right back to being a thing. All the merchandise they're making off Bad Bunny. I mean, give me a fucking break. Meanwhile, you don't have any money to give the lowly production staff or the camera guy or the fucking janitor, the in-ring talent. What the fuck are they working for? How dare you not compensate your roster? A happy roster is a healthy roster, and vice versa. Why would anybody want to work for you if this is the way you're treating the current roster? Don't you think people right now are expressing their displeasure with everybody else that they know in the industry? You don't think people pick up on this shit, being that it's reported publicly all over social media, in the dirt sheets, in the news? Everybody's in the know here. That roster feels a certain way. How do you think the people who are maybe contemplating coming to the WWE think? I don't want to work there if that's the way they're going to treat their staff. That doesn't sound like a place I want to work. WWE doesn't know how long-lasting this could be damaging to them. It's not a good look. It's really not a good look at all. They should be ashamed of themselves for what they've done here. And don't even get me started on Bruce Prichard. What a complete fucking shithead is Bruce Prichard. He didn't want to tell his staff, his team, his department that they weren't getting raises, bonuses, and promotions. Why? Because he himself got a fucking promotion. He himself got a fucking raise. He himself got everything that usually would go to the lower end guy on the totem pole. He got it all. Of course he got it all. That's why he didn't want to tell them. Imagine him sitting on that conference call and he had to tell everybody, well, hey guys, we're not getting promotions, we're not getting raises, we're not getting this, we're not getting that. One of the first things out of my fucking mouth would be, hey, if our staff, if our department's not getting fucking raises and you're our boss, are you getting raises? Are you getting all the perks that we were promised? You get it, we don't? You know that would have been raised. You know that would have been something that was brought to the table. That's why he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to put himself in the fire because he knew if he got on that call, that is exactly what all of that writing team would have thrown right back at him. Of course he got a fucking hefty raise. He got nice stock options. He got bonuses. Even if WWE gave him fucking stock options willingly, they gave him 1,000 shares of stock, right? How much money is that? $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for WWE to give Bruce Prichard in stock options. If they only gave him stock options, that's a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 raise right there. And who's to say the stock doesn't go up a couple of dollars, right? That's 60, 70, whatever, $50,000, $60,000 could turn into $100,000. And then he'd cash out. And all that's got to be reported in their quarterly earnings anyway, because it's got to be on file. WWE's got to tell the stocks or the people on the stock market and the people that have invested money where all this money is going from, or going to, and coming from, and all that. That's all got to be reported. So Bruce is making all this money, and it's being kept secret and doesn't want to tell anybody. It's going to eventually leak out somewhere. It's got to be reported in the annual or the quarterly conference call. It's all got to be reported to everybody. So with Bruce Prichard not doing that, not only has it shown that he doesn't give a fuck about where he works, why he's there. He's handled this situation just like he handles everything in regards to writing these shows and making these shows better. But he showed himself and exposed himself as someone that doesn't give a shit about anything or anyone that works there. He's not there to befriend. He's not there to have a shoulder for people to cry on. He's not there to console anybody. He's not there to listen to anybody's problems. He's not there to help anybody get over, help anybody get better. He's only there for himself. He's got the Vince McMahon mentality. He's only there to make as much money as he can for himself and fuck everybody else. This is why I've been so hard on him. He is not the leader that this locker room needs. He's not the leader this writing team needs. He is not the leader this roster on television that we see on a week-to-week basis needs. He's not what the fans need. Everything that goes to Vince comes from Bruce. If Vince likes something and it sucks, what do you think Bruce Prichard is going to do? He's going to tell Vince McMahon, hey, man, I like that idea. I think you're good. He's going to yes, Vince McMahon, even though the idea sucks. He's not going to bring any concerns from the writing staff or any concerns from the roster to Vince McMahon. Hey, Vince, maybe we should push this guy. Vince is going to have his own personal vendettas against people, and he's going to bury people to Vince McMahon. He's going to sit there and not help anybody out. This is a detriment to the product. Bruce Prichard is a detriment to the product. And when I read this, I am not shocked that I read this. I laughed when I read this. And it just exposes him on top of everything that we've read about Bruce and how he is the fucking dam that stops the water from flowing as far as creative process on this show. Here's the reason why these shows suck. Yes, it's easy to blame Vince McMahon, but there's a reason to blame Bruce Prichard because he is the fuel. He is the fuel that goes to Vince McMahon. If you cut off that fuel supply, maybe Vince McMahon would get the picture. If he heard a different voice or a different opinion about this or that or this or that, it might get to Vince McMahon and it might be better for not only us, but for the shows and the overall health of these shows on Monday and Friday night. This is a terrible situation and WWE should absolutely be ashamed of themselves. Powering through the second half of this podcast, man. Once again, I want to shout out my sponsor for today's show. That is drsquatch.com. You guys are going to use code SCRIPT at checkout to save yourself 20% off. I always tell everybody, man, I never use something just for the sake of using it. These people, these companies, they send you a product and you got to shill the product and you don't really enjoy the product. You don't use the product. That is not the case with Dr. Squatch, man. I have been using them for the last 3 to 4 months. And I absolutely love everything that I've ever gotten from them. Their bars of soap are fantastic. Their shampoo and conditioner is fantastic. They got deodorants. They got toothpaste. They got soaps. They got everything you need. Everything you need, man. You don't need to look anywhere else. I always say, I want you guys to look your best, feel your best, smell your best. I mean, Christ's sakes, you are already listening to the best. Right here on Off the Script. Go and get yourself some Dr. Squatch, man. I personally endorse it, and I tell you, I love it. I know you guys will do the same thing and feel the same way. drsquatch.com. Use code SCRIPT at checkout to save yourself 20% off. No matter what, you guys go to the website, they'll probably offer you some deal. You could still use code SCRIPT and get the 20% on top of the 10, 15, 20% they are already offering you, man. Don't lose out. Code SCRIPT at checkout, drsquatch.com. Now, I know everybody's a Brock Lesnar fan. Brock Lesnar is a guy with a name that we have not mentioned quite often here this year, or even in the later portions of last year. But Brock Lesnar is a big name. Everything he does, everything that he's a part of brings a level of importance that is rarely seen in WWE. But what is Brock Lesnar going to do when he comes back? Where is WWE going to position him? I feel like WWE has run the Brock Lesnar gambit. And everything they've done with Brock Lesnar is the same old shit. He comes back, he wins the title, he disappears, he shows up on the major shows, he defends the title, he holds it till WrestleMania, he puts over whoever WWE deems the next big thing in WWE. Rinse and repeat. It's been the same way for how long now? I think we're over that situation. So if WWE's bringing Brock Lesnar back, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he should be putting everybody over he's in the ring with. Not saying bring him back to lose. Just don't bring him back to win the WWE title. Use him as a special attraction. For all we know, Brock Lesnar doesn't even want the WWE title or the Universal title ever again. Maybe he just wants to be used in a way to help the younger performers because he knows that his days, his years are winding down. And he wants to do good by what he's established for himself. You might not see it, but I see Brock Lesnar being that way. I see Brock Lesnar being that guy. But what is WWE going to do for Brock Lesnar when he comes back? Where are they going to put him? We could put him in the ring against Bobby Lashley. We could put him in the ring against Matt Riddle. We could put him in the ring against Keith Lee. We could put him in the ring against Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns is the type of guy, I know a lot of people would love to see Reigns and Lesnar again, but this time the roles are reversed. Lesnar comes back and there's an issue with Heyman. What are you doing? You're supposed to be with me, but you're with this guy. For all these years, we battled the Roman Empire. Now you're with the Roman Empire. You turned your back on me. I mean, the story is easy to tell. And knowing Paul Heyman, with Brock Lesnar involved, they would make it great. No doubt in my mind. And the match itself would be great. I always went back and watched what they did at WrestleMania 31. Always. That was a fantastic main event. That was their best match, bar none. Nothing even comes close. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31. It may even be better now, with Roman in the role that he's in now, because he's untouchable. Literally everything he does, everything he touches is gold. By the end of SmackDown, we saw Roman Reigns and the Universal title move on to the Elimination Chamber. He's not defending the title in the Chamber, but he's defending the title at the Chamber after the Chamber match is over against whoever wins the Chamber. The rumor is Edge. Edge and Reigns at WrestleMania. Dave Meltzer is noting that in the Observer, in the newsletter, that Reigns and Lesnar is on the table for WWE upon his return, and it would have an interesting story with Paul Heyman being involved, but the match is likely not happening this year. And I don't want it to happen this year. I don't. I think Reigns he's done fantastic. He's at the top level right now in the industry. But imagine Roman Reigns holds the title all this year and then Lesnar comes back. Not only is it going to have Reigns with this long-winded, unstoppable title run, but then you're bringing back Lesnar, who's the one guy that everybody knows he's going to take the title from Reigns. He's the one guy that presents the level of unpredictability that no one else on that roster is going to give you in a match against Roman Reigns. So waiting on it is probably going to be the best for not only Reigns, not only for the Universal title, but for Lesnar as well. Because if he comes back now, you can't beat Reigns. You can't beat him. So it's either going to end in a fuck finish, Heyman's going to fucking screw Lesnar over, remain with Roman, or Lesnar's going to win. And we don't want that. You can't have Reigns drop the title to Lesnar, and right now, if WWE even wanted to do that, wrong. And if you bring Lesnar back now, it's either he wins it or Lesnar loses. And you can't really have two definitive outcomes like that. Now, if you waited, if Reigns was the champion next year and you want to do it at, say, WrestleMania, and Reigns has this big title run, at that point, the title run has lasted so long that WWE would have it in the fans' mind, hey, we're going to drop the title. I think Reigns and his reign is over. And then Lesnar comes in and he's the right guy with the legitimacy to have the fans believe in that. So waiting on it is absolutely the right decision. Lesnar might not appear at WrestleMania this year because of all the travel restrictions implemented. The same travel restrictions are also preventing John Cena, which I talked about in the beginning of the show, for Wrestling on Mania this year. At one point, Cena was locked in for the show, but logistically, he can't appear on the show because he would have to quarantine when he arrives back in Canada. Lesnar would have to do the same thing. But the thing is, Lesnar's not filming a movie. Lesnar could do WrestleMania, quarantine, and go back home. He's not in the middle of a Hollywood production. This is a big match. I expect this match to happen at some point. Lesnar has not appeared on WWE programming since WrestleMania 36. His talent contract quietly expired around that time, and the company pulled his merchandise in August because he wasn't with the company anymore. It's widely believed that he will be back with WWE, but with the pandemic making things complicated, There is no date locked in. Lesnar does what he wants, says what he wants, goes where he wants. He doesn't want to work, he's not going to work. He wants to wait till the pandemic's over. You ain't telling him otherwise. No amount of money is going to get that guy to come back. If he doesn't want to do something, he's well off in Saskatchewan with his wife and his kids hunting deer. He doesn't need anybody. He doesn't need anything. He wants to come back. He's going to come back because he wants to come back. He's going to come back knowing that it's safe for him and his family. And I hope he comes back with the idea in mind, hey, I've seen my time here. I've won WWE titles. I'm the greatest at what I do. I'm the only one with this star power and level of legitimacy here. I would love to see him come back, not only because he wants to, but I want to see him come back to help others and put them over. And if Roman Reigns is that guy, if Roman Reigns can benefit from that, fine. The only other guy I would love to see benefited from Brock Lesnar returning is a Keith Lee or a Matt Riddle. There's money in those matches. There is history between Lee and Lesnar, just a little bit from the Royal Rumble last year. Riddle and Lesnar, though the situation there might lend it to be something that might not happen, there's money there. Riddle's got to be built up. Riddle and Lesnar could give us a money match that would be highly entertaining. Lashley, yeah, it's a match that everybody wants to see, but I feel like it would be one-sided. I think Lesnar would end up beating Lashley. It would just be something to check off the bucket list for Bobby Lashley. Does Lesnar want it? We don't know. But I don't see Bobby Lashley beating Brock Lesnar in a WWE ring. The match might happen, but I don't see Lesnar losing that situation. But Reigns and Lesnar will definitely happen, and waiting is probably the best option. Corey Graves, he says the lack of legitimate tag teams is what's killing WWE's women's tag team division. First of all, there is no tag team division, and the lack of legitimate tag teams is not what's killing WWE's women's tag team titles. It's the fact that WWE, they should have never created or introduced the titles to begin with. They should have already had this in the back of their mind. Hey, it's not going to work. We don't have many legit teams here. And when they did have a solid handful of teams, what has WWE done since then? Every single one of them is now broken up or has been disbanded. So why is there a need for tag team titles? They are merely on the same level as the 24/7 title. It is nothing more than a prop for Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. It is not even making them look good. It's not solidifying their spot on the roster. It's just hardware for them to carry and portray this champion-like portrayal on television. Meanwhile, I don't see Shayna Baszler as being a champion, though she's awesome. She hasn't been booked like one. I'll never see Nia Jax as a legitimate champion in WWE. I mean, the woman is going to be known for, when her career is finished, for what she did last week on Monday Night Raw. That was picked up by New York newspapers. My hole! Give me a break. That's what she's going to be known for. Out of everything in her career, my hole is what Nia Jax is going to be known for. But WWE Creative is what's killing WWE's women's tag team titles. There's no teams. There's no fucking teams. There's no direction. There's no storylines. WWE doesn't even take advantage of the fact that the tag team champions could go to other brands. Why haven't they shown up in NXT? You want women? That's where to go. If you were in the mindset to make these championships feel important, why aren't they in NXT? Why? Why aren't your champions on NXT? No, but they're on Monday Night Raw doing what? To have Lana challenge for the fucking championships? To put them on Charlotte? To boost her fucking unimpressive resume that's been forced down everybody's throat? Why aren't these titles on NXT? That should be where they reside permanently. Unreal. You would think that would happen. Put them on NXT. Have a main roster act. When you actually get your fucking act together, go down to NXT. Build a big mega match between Monday Night Raw talent or SmackDown talent against the NXT Tag Team Women's Champions or the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Whatever. I don't understand why this is so difficult. There are solutions, whether they're long-term solutions or short-term solutions. There are solutions to better where we are now. WWE just hasn't, they haven't taken the initiative to get there. He says this, and I quote, "I don't mean this as any disrespect to any of the women on Raw or SmackDown that compete for the Women's Tag Team Championships. I feel like the lack of legitimate tag teams is what's killing the division. You have people that show up randomly that want a match, and now they're a team. You've got Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, who are about the closest thing to a legitimate tag team. I wouldn't even go that far. I wouldn't even go that far. It's a random pairing that you forced upon us, and now week after week, you finally put them in matching gear. That doesn't make them a tag team. Mandy had a tag team with Sonya, and they put their differences aside. Why you moved her to Monday Night Raw still doesn't make any sense. You got Nia and Shayna that have grown into this role, but it's just been a mashup of tag teams with two random people competing for the championships, and I feel like it's never really allowed that division to shine and become a focus like I know it's capable of, just like the men's tag team championships. They're just as bad. They are just as worse, if not worse. That's been a problem for 6 years now. Probably longer. Nobody cares to fix tag team wrestling. WWE looks at the women's tag team titles as just important as the men's titles. They don't give a shit about tag team wrestling. None. None of them do. They should be viewed on the same ground, but I find it hard to believe that it's going to achieve those heights until you have more legitimate tag teams holding the championships. Corey Graves pretty much insinuated, without actually saying it, get the titles on Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai and keep them on NXT. You got tag teams down there that are more solid as teams than any team on Monday and Friday night. And if you got Dakota and Raquel, that opens up them for showing up on Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown. And when you get your act together and you get your shit together and give us legitimate tag teams on Monday and Friday night, then you present those two on Monday and Friday night and make a legitimate feud out of those pairings for the tag team titles. But you want a solid solution for the now. Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai win those tag team titles when they are given the opportunity to win that tournament and challenge whoever the champions are. And they win those titles. That's it. And then you go about it from there. And the new home of the women's tag team titles is on NXT. Not only, like I said, do you get those titles in a division that's actually booked correctly, that's stocked from top to bottom, where the titles could look good because there'll be a plethora of competition, but then you get those champions to show up on Raw and SmackDown unpredictably, surprise-like, and you get them, moreover, for making the jump, bringing the titles after they rebuilt some importance to them. Show up on Raw, show up on SmackDown. Everybody would benefit. The titles would benefit. The champions would benefit. Raw and SmackDown would benefit from getting youthful new talent in front of the eyes on Monday and Friday night, if there are any left. Corey Graves is right, to an extent. There is a solution. It's up to WWE to follow and do what I said. If not, then the tag team titles should be burned, abolished, disregarded, and thrown out. All I want to know is everybody advocated. Where the fuck are you? Everybody advocated. We need women's tag team titles. We need women's tag team titles. Where are you now? Where are you now? Why are you content with what we're getting now? It's trash. The titles are dead. They're just as valuable as R-Truth's title. You all asked for it. Now you got it. Everybody asked for it. Where's that energy where you put into asking WWE for the titles? All the women on the roster, you asked Vince for the titles. Where are you now? Why aren't you showing that same energy then, now? Seeing where the titles are as fucking trash and irrelevant. I guess you don't care anymore because you got what you wanted. It goes both ways. People in the community, they're dumb. They want what they want, they get it, and they don't give a shit. They level off into this consistent fucking, I'm all right, I'm content with where we are right now. Nobody wants to get better. Nobody wants to get better. As long as you get what you get, you got what you wanted, move on. Then you complain about the next fucking thing. Meanwhile, I've been speaking all about this for years now. But I'm the negative one. At least I want a better product. That's what I can hang my hat on. Friday Night SmackDown. I don't have the ratings for last night's show, but last week, the SmackDown overnight ratings dipped for the post-Royal Rumble show. The episode drew an average of 2.126 million viewers. That was down from the previous week of 2.228. The first hour did a 2.144, and the second hour did a 2.108. It also pulled in an average of a 0.6 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, and that was number 2 for the night. That is the Royal Rumble post-show, folks. Down. Pretty sad, being that the Rumble was critically praised, I would say, given a unanimous thumbs up from everybody, and a lot of people were not interested to see the follow-up to the Royal Rumble. SmackDown was in the middle of the pack for the nights in network viewership. It was behind 2020 Magnum PI, Blue Bloods, Shark Tank, Dateline, and other series for the top shows on network television. SmackDown last night, I will not be going over the previous week because, quite frankly, who gives a shit? Seth Rollins made his SmackDown return. Big E versus Shinsuke Nakamura in the IC title match of the night went to a no contest. Apollo Crews came in and interfered, teasing, turning heel. This more intense Apollo Crews with a chip on his shoulder. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. As far as the Rollins return to SmackDown, he's playing this changed character. He's now seen the light, being that he's now a father, and he's taking all of that and kind of molding it into this new Messiah-like gimmick where he's kind of seen a complete new vision, I would say. But WWE teased Rollins going after Cesaro. Then Daniel Bryan comes out and helps Cesaro as he's beating down Cesaro, Seth Rollins. So Bryan and Rollins was teased on SmackDown last night, which is very disheartening. But Rollins is back, whether he's back or not, and that's something that you care about. I don't really care about Rollins. I think whether he's there or not, he adds nothing to the show. I really don't get it. And the segment didn't even make sense. I mean, you got Buddy Murphy, you got Dominic Mysterio, and you got Rey Mysterio out there. And all the torment that Seth Rollins brought upon this family, they're all standing out there and they're not itching to go in there and fucking rip this guy's face off. It's unreal. It is unreal, the logic gaps that exist in WWE. Baron Corbin, Sami Zayn, Rey, and Dominic Mysterio. This was a tag team match, an Elimination Chamber qualifier. I ranted about this on the Friday Night Live stream. Kind of lazy that WWE is doing elimination matches in tag team form, but I guess they added stakes to the show in some way, so I really shouldn't complain too much. But it's tag team matches, and they only got 2 hours to fill, so they thought this was probably the quickest and most successful way to do that. Corbin and Sami Zayn won. They are in the chamber. They advance. Daniel Bryan and Cesaro also advanced to the chamber. They defeated Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler, tag team champions, losing on national television in a match that wasn't for the tag team titles, simply to be in the Elimination Chamber. Where are their priorities? Why are champions losing on television? I'll never understand it. So we got Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Corbin, Sami Zayn. Who are the other two, JD? Well, Adam Pearce started at the beginning of the show and said Jey Uso and Kevin Owens are being added to the Elimination Chamber. Paul Heyman lobbied that Reigns should not be defending the title inside the chamber, but offered to give whoever wins the chamber a title match at the end of the night. So instead of doing it for WrestleMania, they're doing it at the chamber, which I guess makes it predictable that it's not going to be anybody worth anything. It's probably going to be a one-off thing, and then Edge is going to get Roman. I don't know where they're going with this. If you guys want my full, complete thoughts, it's right in the beginning of the SmackDown live stream. Go and check it out. Links will be down below. The Street Profits defeated Otis and Chad Gable. And then we got Bayley defeating Liv Morgan. And that was pretty much SmackDown on Friday night. Lars Sullivan. I know you guys aren't really too keen on Lars Sullivan. Lars Sullivan was quietly released from WWE a couple of weeks back. Sullivan took his Instagram account and showed off concept art about a gimmick that WWE eventually axed. They were planning this gimmick for Lars Sullivan upon his return. And I got pictures. I'll show it now if you guys see on screen. He captioned the post with the brilliant behemoth, Lawrence Sullivan. He didn't provide any other details, thus there's no word on whether this was something he pitched to WWE officials or if it was an idea that WWE had before he departed. Now, Sullivan was released from his WWE contract last month after being off television for 3 months. There have been various backstage reports about his departure, including why McMahon fired him. During his time with WWE, he was sidelined with a serious knee injury, anxiety problems, he no-showed events, and this was after he was ousted on social media for social media posts and message board posts that resurfaced in 2019, going after Jeff Hardy and being racist and homophobic and going after Stephanie McMahon and pretty much being a troll at a younger age. Then he was ousted on social media again for slipping into a yoga instructor's DMs, offering dick pics and doing that type of thing on Instagram. So he was not in a good way. Then he had the pornographic film that he was a part of that somebody uncovered and simply was done out of malice because people in this world love to see others fail for whatever reason. I'll never understand it. No matter how bad he was in his past, he doesn't deserve to be completely shit on all through his WWE run. Nobody ever gave him a fucking chance. He didn't give himself a chance. He was his own worst enemy, but you can't sit there and just completely shit on the guy and not feel for him. His father passed away, has major anxiety problems. He was trying to get better. He couldn't bring himself to get better. He's now trying to make himself better. Everybody deserves another chance. And I don't think people really understand that. They just rather see him fail and be miserable, which is something I don't understand about our society. He did give his first public comments, including the likelihood that he's done with wrestling after his short release. He was done with WWE. They let him go. Vince loved him. Vince seen a lot of money in him. I spoke about this quite often. Vince seen a lot of money. Vince didn't give a shit about everything else. He wanted to work with Sullivan, but Sullivan, after completely no-showing SmackDown after that one sit-down interview with Michael Cole in November, that was it. They let him go. And I don't think, seeing that his behavior is what it is now with WWE or was with WWE, I don't know how Vince is ever going to trust him to potentially bring him back. Apparently, he's still training at the Performance Center from what I read. But I think that has something to do with his 90 days. They let him go. He's got a 90-day no-compete. He can still train inside the Performance Center until those 90 days is up. What he does after this, I don't know. I wish him the best. I really do. Maybe he shows up somewhere else. Maybe he's saying he's done for wrestling right now or done with wrestling for right now, but he's not really done with wrestling. So Kurt Angle has his Kurt Angle show. Everybody's got their own fucking show, their own podcast. More podcasts in a sea of podcasts in the community. Kurt Angle explained why Vince McMahon was a huge fan of Sullivan in the first place. Angle said that McMahon was a fan of Sullivan's look, strength, and explosiveness. Angle added that Sullivan simply needed more training as he was still learning. Angle says, and I quote, "It would have been great. I wouldn't have been upset if Lars Sullivan worked out. But you know, Vince loved his look. He loved his strength. He loved his explosiveness. I just think that he wasn't as experienced as he could have been to start out. I think he needed a little bit more training, and he was still learning. He was very, very basic in, but he had an incredible look. And I think Vince McMahon was drawn to that. So, I had to put Lars over. It was just another one of those things that I did before I made my way out of the company as a wrestler. I wish him the best. But I'll tell you what, man, with the pictures that I seen on his Instagram account about the gimmick, I always say, and I'll end with this. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'll say this. I always think that what pro wrestling is missing is character. Sullivan coming out in the red trunks with Lars, like it's fucking black taped on his fucking tights. It looked Bush League. They tried to make him into a monster. They went nowhere with him. He came out and randomly beat up people. What sense did it make? There was no backstory on him. Nobody knew anything about him. He had no fucking character. He looked great, but WWE gave you no reason to fucking care about him. With the pictures that he leaked, whether it's real or not, I thought it looked great on him. It put him in a situation where, hey, this could be a good direction for him. it's better than what they gave him. Character is needed. I don't know if they'll call him Lawrence Sullivan or if they'll give him a different moniker completely, but the brilliant behemoth, I mean, he looks like something out of a fucking horror film. I love it. And if WWE went with that, I would have given that all the chances in the world to see if it succeeded. Because it couldn't be as worse as what we got. Character is needed. This is something that the company is sorely missing. Everybody feels the same. If that stood out as being different, whether you liked it or not, you got to give it props for being different and going against what the current status of the company is. It might have worked. It might have taken Lars to a different height, but at the end, it was him who pretty much was a detriment to himself. He couldn't handle it. And like I said, is Vince McMahon ever going to contemplate bringing him back? And is Vince McMahon ever going to trust him since he let Vince McMahon down constantly, time and time and time again? It's a sad state. It's a sad story for Lars Sullivan, man. I wish him the best. WWE. Are they planning on turning Dominic Mysterio heel? Now, I mentioned this on Friday's live stream, but it's being reported that, or it's not being reported, this is more of an opinion piece, but I found it to be quite interesting because I correlated it with what I said last week, or last stream on Friday night. And I've been saying this not even last week, I've been saying this for months about what to do with Dominic Mysterio. Wade Keller of PW Torch said this: Mysterio looks to be well on his way to becoming a WWE superstar, following in the footsteps of his father. He's 23 years old, and he's been giving decent performances. He really shined at SummerSlam against Seth Rollins, and he's been doing well against Baron Corbin, if you want to even say that. So Wade Keller says this, and I quote, "I think they're headed towards Dominic turning heel. I've been an advocate for Dominic getting a push ahead of his tenure and resume, and all the evidence is there that he's ready for it. And I think he might end up being a good heel. It does seem like there is something going on to where this is where they are going. Rebuffing Ray's advice last week and being heelish and attacking Corbin from behind. That's what he said. That's what Wade Keller thinks, and that's what he said. And that was reported to Sportskeeda. They got his opinion on that for Sportskeeda. The direction WWE takes remains to be seen, but it appears that they are planting the scenes for a possible heel turn for Dominic, who is openly disobeying his father. A feud between the two would probably not sit well with everybody, but a major section of the WWE audience would love to see Ray versus Dominic at WrestleMania. Or some people have even pitched Ray and Dominic going after the tag team titles and then turning heel. I don't know. There's a lot of potential for Ray and Dominic, whether they are battling each other or they're teaming up. But I don't even think that's the best route for Dominic to go. I said this for months now. I said this on Friday's live stream like I just stated. Dominic should be in NXT. Dominic should be in NXT, and Dominic should be chasing Santos Escobar for the Cruiserweight Championship because of what that championship was to Rey Mysterio back in his early day. Obviously, Dominic still needs learning. Obviously, Dominic still needs presence on television. Obviously, Dominic needs work with his promo. Obviously, Dominic needs work with his in-ring to mold him into the better performer that we all know he could be, being that he's the son of Rey Mysterio. Working against Legado del Fantasma and Santos Escobar could be that. Develop a storyline between the Mysterios and Legado del Fantasma, being that they want to recreate Luchador in their own image. You can't get any better than the biggest luchador of all time in Rey Mysterio with now his son present, learning and teaching, or Dominic learning from his father, Rey Mysterio teaching Dominic, everything. That's against exactly what Legado del Fantasma wants to bring to NXT and to the WWE. It writes itself. It writes itself. So why isn't Dominic in NXT doing what he really should be doing? Because what is he doing on Monday night and Friday night when he was on Raw and when he was on SmackDown? Or when he's on SmackDown? He ain't doing much of anything. Helping his father, helping his sister, ushering his mother out there, battling Murphy, battling Rollins, battling Corbin. I have no idea why this feud with Corbin is even happening. He should be in NXT battling Legado del Fantasma, and NXT should be molding him into the superstar that we could eventually see on the main roster 2 or 3 years from now. Everybody else had to go through the process. Why is Dominic skipping all these necessary steps? Because he's the son of Rey Mysterio? No preferential treatment. Even Charlotte Flair went through NXT's ranks. And you all know how I feel about that. What makes Rey Mysterio's son any different? Do the right thing. There's a great story to be told. Why would you miss out on that? AEW Dynamite viewership sees a decrease against impeachment trial coverage. NXT is also down for the week. Is it really the impeachment trial? Or is it just people are done watching professional wrestling emanating from the same goddamn fucking place every single week? There's got to be something more instead of the excuse of, oh, it's Trump's impeachment trial. Who gives a shit? All it was opening statements. The viewership numbers are in for AEW and NXT. So this was the go-home show for TakeOver Vengeance Day, I should say, tomorrow night. AEW drew 741,000, and NXT did 558,000 live viewers. Last week, AEW did 844. Now, at first glance, comparing both of those numbers, it might be the impeachment trial, but, a lot of people are now claiming that AEW has reached its peak, AEW has reached its ceiling. Exactly who is doing well in the ratings with the pandemic era still looming? I'll even give Raw the benefit of the doubt. At least they might be hovering around a 2. 1.9, 2.0, now 1.6, 1.7. I mean, that's a drastic difference from a 2.0. Even Raw would be at a 2.0 if there were live audiences every single week and things were normal. But the shows would be normally the same. They'd be largely the same. Whatever you get now would be exactly what you would be getting in front of a live audience. But with the pandemic going on, who exactly is watching sports? Who's enjoying sports? AEW has emanated from Daly's place for a year now, straight. I know I'm sick and tired of it. I can't stand it. We need things to get back to normal, and that's when the audience will be back. If it's not back, then we can associate AEW having a problem. But a lot of people want to jump down AEW's throat. A lot of people want to jump down AEW's throat. Why? Oh, they reached their ceiling. Oh, they reached their peak. Oh, they're failing. It's nothing more than a niche audience. All right, so if AEW was on Wednesday night and NXT was on Tuesday night, don't you think NXT would be doing more ratings and AEW would be doing near 1 million? They'd be hovering around 1 million every single week. The reason why AEW is not doing what they should be doing is because not of Trump's impeachment or not because of the lack of audience and the fact that they're running Daly's place every fucking week and they're not a touring brand anymore. That hurts. But the reason why AEW is fluctuating from 741 to 844, upwards towards 900, it depends on what's happening on the show. The fact that New Japan's Kenta was on the show, I don't know if that necessarily is a positive thing as far as Kenta is concerned, but that forbidden door was open. We got a partnership between New Japan looming with AEW. That should have drew a bigger rating, for sure. That main event was fantastic on Wednesday night. How much of it has to do with people sick and tired of where they are right now with sports and it being just unwatchable with the pandemic? But also, don't you think NXT takes away from AEW's audience and vice versa? If AEW was by themselves, they'd be hovering around 1 million. If NXT was on Tuesday night by themselves, they would be at where AEW usually is, between 800 and 900,000. The reason why NXT is on Wednesday nights is to do exactly what you see in the ratings every single week, to take away the audience. On top of everything else that's going on in the world, NXT is always there to add on to that. It's exactly why they're there. NXT only exists on Wednesday nights on the USA Network because of AEW to take away from their viewership. That's why AEW is not drawing. This has been a thing since AEW first debuted on TNT. This is not new information. So if everybody's saying AEW reached their peak or AEW is dying, Give me a fucking break. NXT is doing exactly what they were put on Wednesdays to do. Exactly. So enough of the bullshit. You like Dynamite? You like Dynamite. You hate Dynamite? You hate Dynamite. You watch NXT? You love it or hate it? Whatever. It's better than Monday. It's better than Monday. That's all I'll say. Viewers 18 to 49. AEW did 0.29. That's down. So obviously that audience was somewhere else. NXT did a 0.12. Dismal. They didn't rank in any other category. And AEW ranked number 21 in the top 150 shows on cable. NXT was number 62. NXT didn't even crack the top 50 shows on cable. Darby Allin defeated Joey Janela to retain the TNT title. Cody Rhodes and Lee Johnson defeated Peter Avalon, pretty Peter Avalon, and Cesar Bononi. Chris Jericho and MJF defeated the Acclaimed. Kenny Omega and Kenta defeated Jon Moxley and Lance Archer in what I thought was the most entertaining main event in the history of Dynamite. And Pac defeated Dolph Ziggler 2.0. Dolph's brother, Ryan Nemeth. NXT. NXT saw the go-home show for TakeOver Vengeance. MSK defeated Legado del Fantasma to advance to the Dusty Finals at the pay-per-view. Xia Li, who I think her presentation has been fucking spot on. They knocked it out of the park. I love everything about this. I just need them to convince me that this being that they have with Xia Li and Boa is not 1,000 fucking years old. Can we really believe that someone's 1,000 fucking years old? Give me a break. So Xia Li defeated Cora Jade, who just signed with WWE. Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon defeated Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell in the semifinals of the Dusty Women's Classic. They go on to the finals to battle Raquel and Dakota. Should be a good match. I'm going with Raquel and Dakota. I've said they need to win it. No question. So that gives the babyface versus heel dynamic at the pay-per-view. Kushida defeated Austin Theory via disqualification. Johnny Gargano faked an injury. He began the night seeking a suspension against Kushida. William Regal wasn't having any of it. And with the North American title being on the line at TakeOver, we had an injury from Gargano that was quickly exposed when Kushida emerged and exposed him on NXT. That led to a match with Austin Theory. So Kushida beat Austin Theory. Now he's got Gargano, which should be a fantastic match at TakeOver. No question. Looking forward to that. Cameron Grimes returned to NXT. And for the first time in 2 months, he returned to NXT and was, I don't want to say unrecognizable, but he cut a very lively promo about how he came into money thanks to his investment in GameStop. Good for him. Does it lead to championships? I don't know. We'll see what happens. He's too good to be middle of the road. Cameron Grimes! To the moon! Love me some Cameron Grimes, man. Grizzled Young Veterans defeated Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher. Goodbye for the makeshift tag team of Ciampa and Thatcher. The Grizzled Young Veterans are going on to challenge MSK in the finals of the Dusty Classic. And you know what? I'm going with the Grizzled Young Veterans. Why? Because it's too predictable that the new tag team that's been there for a cup of tea gets one over on one of the best tag teams in the entire company. Give me a break. Give me a break, man. Gibson and Drake should win the Dusty Classic. No questions asked. I will be live on YouTube Sunday night with TakeOver and Vengeance Day with the live stream, so make sure you guys join me then. WWE might be planning to introduce another new women's title in NXT. During his TakeOver conference call, Triple H was asked if there was any talks about introducing a new women's title in NXT. Triple H said that those conversations are happening, especially now that the women's division is much larger and could actually handle it. He says this, and I quote, "I think those conversations could happen. They are happening. I think you're always looking to make it everything that it can be. You also want to make sure you don't water things down. I'm not a big fan of having 38 titles in an organization. Just ask Vince about how that is going over there. He's not a big fan of having 38 titles in the organization that are just like everybody else, constantly making their way to a different title all the time. I don't believe it's always about those championships. There's a lot of different storytelling. That is definitely a thought And this is in the mind of us down here in NXT. We'll just have to see how things go. I think the women's division has increased in size. People were talking about it a few years ago, but I don't believe that the depth and size was where it was actually warranted. It's getting to the size that it is now, so it could certainly handle it. So, yeah, those conversations, they have been a thing. You know what? Normally I would be against this. I'm going to say I'm for it. And I think WWE adding a women's version of an Intercontinental Championship, I think would be great. I really do. I mean, there's a lot of women down there that aren't really doing much of anything with one women's title. That entire division there's got to be at least 16 women in that division. That's what I call a division. That's what I would like to see done on Monday and Friday nights. Merge the divisions. It would actually be a division, and the overall health of the division would be better off for it. One championship and one mid-card title. You don't need women's tag team titles. You don't need a SmackDown title. You don't need a Raw. One overall main women's title and a mid-card title. Fuck the tag team titles. Why are they needed? I never said once, hey, I think this is a good idea. Hey, I want tag team titles in the women's division. Not saying you can't have tag team matches, but singles titles are where it's at. Merge the Raw and SmackDown women's divisions. You can't call it a fucking division on Raw with 6 women, 5 women. NXT has it right. That's their bread and butter. The women's division in NXT is how you handle women's wrestling. It's always been that way. Always. So if they're adding a version of the Intercontinental title or a Intercontinental title variant as a new title in NXT, I'm all for it. Io Shirai can only handle one opponent at a time. What are the other women actually fighting for? WWE has not brought back or brought down the women's championships to NXT, so they don't even have that. So the introduction of a new mid-card title for the women, hey, I'm all for it. I think the division certainly at this point can handle it. Monday Night Raw sets a new ratings low for the year. Not surprised there. The show on Monday drew an average of 1.715 on the USA Network. This is down from the previous week of 1.892. This was the lowest viewed episode of Raw thus far in 2021, as the previous low came back on January 25th with 1.819. Good. They deserve it. The show sucked. The show was fucking terrible on Monday night. The 18 to 49 demo saw hour 1 at 0.54, 0.48 for hour 2, and 0.44 for hour 3. The hourly breakdown is 1.821 in hour 1, 1.735 in hour 2, and 1.589 in hour 3. That hour 3 is absolutely a killer for the overall rating. It's awful. Drew McIntyre defeated Randy Orton by DQ by interference of Sheamus, who, by the way, they said on the show was not good enough to main event a one-on-one match for the WWE title, so that's why they're putting him in the chamber. They needed something bigger. Nice shot at Sheamus there, folks. Sheamus is not good enough, but he's good enough in the chamber with 5 other guys. Great. Charlotte Flair and Lacey Evans, they had a match. Lacey Evans defeats Charlotte Flair. Charlotte looks like an idiot because she disobeyed the referee's orders, so she lost by DQ, giving Lacey Evans the women's title shot at Elimination Chamber. Asuka is losing that title to Lacey Evans, folks. How do you feel about that situation? Awful. Lana and a tables match against Nia Jax and her hole. Lana defeats Nia Jax. One of the worst matches I've seen in years. Awful. Lana is terrible. And I don't need to say anything about Nia Jax. Her work, her body of work speaks for itself. I guess her hole speaks for itself. Naomi defeated Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler, what a fucking disgrace, man. I said this on Monday. Shayna Baszler is going through the motions. She feels like, what the fuck am I even doing here? She works and operates at this level where it's like, she doesn't even give a shit anymore. It is so opposite of what we seen Shayna do in NXT. It's almost as if she's hating being where she is. It just comes off that way. Naomi defeats Shayna Baszler in about 3 minutes. Keith Lee defeated Matt Riddle. We got a U.S. title match booked for the pay-per-view. Keith Lee versus Matt Riddle versus Bobby Lashley for the U.S. title. And Damian Priest defeated Angel Garza. Angel Garza was only put in that situation because WWE needed Priest to beat somebody else outside of Miz and Mars. Because that's where they're going for WrestleMania, I assume. So Angel Garza was only put into this feud because he's going to be a punching bag for Damian Priest. Good. Good on you, WWE, for mishandling another NXT talent. Somebody that could be a bright piece to the future of this company, Angel Garza. Good on you. What happened to the red rose he's been giving out? At this point, I'd rather see him with Eva Marie. Raw was terrible. You thought Raw was good. You got some fucking mental issues. Carlito. He's uncertain about a WWE future. Now, Carlito recently sat down with Corey Graves on After the Bell. He's uncertain about a WWE future in this second go-around, but they brought him on After the Bell. So that might mean that he is on his way to coming into the WWE, and they may be working out some contract details. Otherwise, if he was not going to be with WWE, why would they have him on After the Bell if there was nothing planned for this guy's future? Doesn't really make sense, because who gives a fuck about Carlito if he's not going to be in the WWE? He'll go back to Puerto Rico, do what he does down there with his promotion in Puerto Rico, and goodbye. Maybe he'll have another appearance in the Royal Rumble next year and rinse and repeat. Contract talks again. Oh, he looks great. Maybe this time he'll be able to eat a fucking apple and spit it in somebody's face. So he was on After the Bell. Carlito sat down with Corey Graves, and he talked about his WWE future. He's not sure what to expect. He would love to come back if things can work out, because that's always his goal. He wants the money and some apples. Organic, preferably. Bright red. As of now, I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. I don't know if the conditions are right. I'd love to be back. My whole goal was to be away, take a breather, and come back. 10 years? Take a breather for 10 years. It's a long time to take a breather, bro. I feel like I already did what I wanted to do, end things on a better note. If I come back, my goal was to be a better Carlito, be a better performer in my own way, and be a better person too. End quote. So it was previously reported that Carlito was expected to sign a new WWE contract. It was considered a formality, but we're waiting to see what happens with Carlito. He wanted to be a better Carlito. He wanted to end things on a better note, because apparently when he left, things were not in a way where it ended good for either side. There was a lot of disgruntledness there. So Carlito being back, he might have ended things on a better note, and WWE appreciated him. They really liked the way he handled himself. They loved the way he looked. Everybody loved the way he looked. He looked in the best shape of his life in his 40s. Looks better now than he did then. But his goal is to be a better Carlito, be a better performer in his own way. To be a better performer, you got to be on TV every week. I'd like to see that. I think he's got a lot to add to the mid-card in WWE on Raw or on SmackDown, wherever they put him. But his goal is to be a better Carlito. He may be a better Carlito. He's more mature now. How that lends itself in that WWE locker room, I don't know. Will he be a better Carlito after the fact, being back in WWE? I don't know. Things are different from when he was there last time. But I think he'd be welcomed back with open arms, and I think the fans want it to happen as well, just based on how he looked in the Royal Rumble and then on Monday Night Raw teaming with Jeff Hardy. I think he's got a lot to add. I'd be happy he'd be back. If he comes back, I would have no complaints about that. I think he would add a lot to that U.S. title picture. I really do. Or the Intercontinental title picture. Either one. So we'll see what happens, man. Hopefully he makes it known about what he's doing, and I'd like to see him back in WWE. I'd like to see Andrade back in the WWE, but it's not looking good, folks. It's not looking good. According to Fightful Select, Andrade was not even placed on the list as Royal Rumble alternatives. This was a situation where Andrade was not on a list for possible people to be in the Rumble if something happened. Murphy and Cedric Alexander were on a list, but Andrade was not on the list because WWE felt like Andrade wasn't needed. Now, Fightful said that they've heard nothing about whether or not Andrade would be at the building for the Royal Rumble, but they can confirm he was not listed as an alternative either to be in the Rumble. There were rumors that WWE was planning to bring back Andrade and give him a push. That hasn't happened yet either, and he's not been seen on WWE television since he last was seen. Andrade has a ton of ability. They've ruined this guy's character. They don't really give a shit about Andrade. The fact that he doesn't speak English fluently, maybe he's working on his English while he's away. Maybe he's getting tips from the the Flair family, from Charlotte. I don't know what's going on. The fact that Andrade was on television and they took Zelina Vega away from him and they did this whole teasing angle. I mean, give me a break. That act worked so well in NXT and he looked like a main event guy. Why WWE thinks it wouldn't be the same thing on the main roster is just ludicrous to me. It really is. That was a winning act. It was. And he's a damn good in-ring performer. Give me a break. Now, WWE wanted to pair him with Charlotte. According to the rumors, pair him with Charlotte to have Charlotte's star power rub off on him and bring their real-life relationship to TV. It's not a bad idea. It actually might make Charlotte Flair a little bit more tolerable. So we'll see what happens. But Andrade right now, where is he? Same thing as being asked about Aleister Black. Where is he? Why does WWE employ these people and pay them to not use them? I don't know. I don't know. Where the fuck are they? Vanessa Bourne, where is she? She's been slated to be called up to the main roster for about a year now. And WWE has not done anything with her. People were asking about Vanessa Bourne. I don't know why. Ringside News had learned and seeked information on this, that there is still no talk about Vanessa Bourne on the main roster. She was called up in January 2020, but she's not been seen on Raw or Friday Night SmackDown. Bourne's last match in NXT took place on January 31st, 2020. She teamed with Jessie Kamea and Indy Hartwell to take on Catalina Garcia, Mercedes Martinez, and Rita Rice in a losing effort. I don't even know who half those people are. When asking around about Bourne, Ringside News says they were told she's not injured. She is still working out in the ring and learning as well. She's 32 years old and is still taking major time on working on her in-ring ability. Additionally, we were told she's great, but still green in this style. I don't get it. I don't get it. She's not on NXT. She's not on Raw. She's not on SmackDown. I think she even teased going to Raw or SmackDown last year at some point. And WWE's done nothing with her. Do you want to know why they haven't done anything with her? Because she was called up to the main roster or was going to be on the main roster because Paul Heyman wanted her on the main roster. And she's not on Raw or SmackDown because Bruce knows that she was a Paul Heyman project and Bruce wants nothing to do with Paul Heyman. Just going to throw that out there. She will never see the light of day on the main roster. She will never be successful on the main roster. She might as well just set it for herself. NXT is it. Thanks to Bruce Prichard. And I stand by that. Where's Aleister Black? He was a Paul Heyman guy. Nowhere to be found. Andrade was a Paul Heyman guy. Nowhere to be found. Is that a coincidence, folks? I think not. I think not. And the only reason why Apollo Crews is getting a push on SmackDown is because of Daniel Bryan. It's not a coincidence. Braun Strowman, it's been off TV. Hopefully we don't see him in any major title implications going into WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre versus Braun Strowman. I'll pass. I'll pass. Where is he? He worked the Rumble match. However, he wasn't featured on this week's TV tapings. Turns out that Strowman has been dealing with an infection in his blood system. There's a reason he's been missing in action. He took to Instagram to provide an update on his health. He says, and I quote, "Yo." So a little update since I've been off air for a little bit. I got really sick over the weekend and got an infection that got into my blood system and had to be put on antibiotics for that. It was awful. I dropped 15 pounds in 5 days. Couldn't eat. Looks like 50 pounds of water weight. All my joints were swollen and inflamed, but the antibiotics are now working and I'm feeling better. He then added he's going to be back to training and he'll be back very soon. If you guys were wondering where Braun Strowman was, he was out with an infection. Hopefully he's getting better. I don't like to hear that about anybody, even though I'm not a fan of Braun Strowman, and I think he is a one-trick pony. This has nothing to do with the real-life guy behind the character. Hopefully he gets better, but if he comes back, I urge you, please, do not give me a Drew McIntyre versus Braun Strowman main event for the WWE title at WrestleMania. That sounds god-awful. God-awful. And finally, guys, Bad Bunny. Gotta have news on Bad Bunny. He's WWE's biggest merchandise seller. Bad Bunny brings in over $500,000 to WWE shop. The famous rapper's Royal Rumble merchandise dominated WWE Shop. There was a time when Bad Bunny had the top-selling item in the men's, women's, youth, and hoodies on WWE Shop. According to Fightful Select, Bad Bunny's merchandise sold over $500,000. The only other person in the top 5 is Roman Reigns. At the time they got their information, the only person in the top 5 was Roman Reigns. Even then, the number 5 spot did about 65% of the sales of the number 4 seller and less than 5% of the top seller. To say that Bad Bunny was a big success is an understatement. Now you know why WWE brought in Bad Bunny, folks. WWE needs Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny doesn't need WWE. And no matter what Bad Bunny does for WrestleMania and what he does to bring Spotlight to Raw, will it be a long-lasting spotlight? Is Bad Bunny going to turn these fans over to new fans, his fans over to WWE fans to watch the product on a weekly basis? No. Bad Bunny fans are watching for when Bad Bunny's on and then goodbye. They don't give a shit about anybody else or anything else on Monday Night Raw. They're buying his merchandise because it's Bad Bunny merchandise, and they don't even give a shit that it's WWE merchandise from WWE Shop. It's got Bad Bunny on it, they want it. They may be collectors, they may be avid fans, whatever the case may be. His audience is not going to be transformed into WWE viewing audience. Doesn't work that way. Give me a fucking break with this nonsense that he's good for television. He's a non-factor to television. Priest, will he get over? Who knows? Is Priest going to be better off because he's working with Bad Bunny? Probably not. But I love Damian Priest. I think he's a good guy. I think he deserves a fucking chance. If this is his way in, so be it. If it gets him on WrestleMania and achieves his dream, so be it. But Bad Bunny is going to be a non-factor, folks, for WWE television. If you think he's a factor moving forward, you may be as dumb as I think you are. Guys, I'm getting out of here. Thank you so much for all the support. I appreciate all of you sticking around with me to the very end, man. Make sure to hit that thumbs up down below. Turn on the bell for all notifications. Hit that subscribe button down below if you have not done so yet. Patreon.com/JD from NY206. Instagram and Twitter @JD from NY206. Make sure you guys follow me on social media. Go and check the description for everything else that you might have missed on the channel this week. Bonfire.com for your merchandise. Mouthmasker.com/OTS for your masks. And make sure you guys go out and check Dr. Squatch, drsquatch.com. Use code SCRIPT at checkout for 20% off. Guys, I will be live tomorrow night for TakeOver Vengeance Day right here on YouTube. Make sure you guys get that notification and hang out tomorrow night to talk about TakeOver. I'll have some news and rumors. We'll go over the show, and we'll have a good time and hang out on Sunday night, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you right back here on episode 365 next Saturday on Off the Script. See you guys later.